in. So the kill feed will start to show some of these teams moving in, trying to get into position just to make that second rotation. They have to go through not one team, but two teams. So all the teams that are holding buildings, they might have company very soon. The teams underneath, there's normally one team that desperation drops down to the bottom. So if you're on the bottom side, you have to expect company. And this is firmly actually now dead center in Lava Fisher. And it still could be top right or that western side. It's going to be real crazy in Lava Fisher real soon. So you're going to see on top, in the middle, underneath, they'll be stacking on top of each other. I mean, it's about to be a graveyard.
Oh yeah, things are about to go down here, and even as the shield expires, and on top of Never Lucky shows us that much. Hey, they got a little bit lucky at least picking up some KP out of Lava Fisher, whereas on the other side, SMP, they're the ones that need to get a little bit luckier. They've got a long distance to go until that ring and are not full health at all. Pushing the portal a little bit closer, get themselves a little bit more cover, will give them that opportunity to maybe be able to push up through these teams gatekeeping them by countdown.
I mean, what do you do? SMP, we already knew they were in a bad spot before. That's one team out of the way via a Valk, so that opens the doors slightly, but 25 seconds, you don't have time to pop a Phoenix here. That zone is closing in quickly. This is the ravine. They're going to find other people underneath here. It will not be a free rotation. We're down to 15 squads already, and I mean, all these Valk that are going up in the air, they have to land somewhere.
It's only getting harder for a lot of these squads as well. Ooh, Never Lucky, really not living up to his name as Oxy. Already cleaned up several kills, and now like he's going to be getting a little bit more with his team. Finding Flesh there, it's going to be the elimination, not the actual kill for them, but assisting in finishing it off, reducing a little bit of that competition, and moving themselves forward, keeping their spot safe, as well as I think that they are just barely inside of the next ring. It's very difficult to tell up in the southwest corner of the map, but that would be a god roll.
This ends on the ledge, so if you have a building, you have to now figure out how to rotate out of said building without being seen. There are 14 teams left. There's a catwalk underneath the middle building. It's like the safest spot. The building now, she has that positioning, but they will be pushed. They will be threatened here. They have the caustic, but there will be several other teams, including by way of nades and caustic bolts. You might have your caustic that can deal with it, but the rest of your team can't. Sheesh is in a great position, but there are so many teams still here in Lava Fisher.
This reminds me of just Esports Arena's Pro Night on Friday, where we had TSM and Cloud9 both fighting for this ledge. They ended up getting third-partied from below at the same time, so there is a lot of risk in holding these buildings because you can get pushed, but if you do manage to hold on to them, it can pay off in a really, really big way. Keep everybody else in Lava Fisher, but the end game is sure to be exciting. As now 5 seconds left on the next close. It's going to force a lot of people a lot more uncomfortably close together. On the low ground, Dumpers have managed to hold on to it here, but for how long can they keep that up?
This is the team underneath, so you can survive here until the last zone, but moving into the last zone or from 5 to 6, that's when it gets difficult. Dumpers actually has a nice spot here because they can rotate from underneath. There's more cover here. You just start to get eyes on you for the later part. With this zone closing in 15 seconds, you're going to see this pull to the left, and a lot of teams really start to scramble. Down to 10 teams, and this is going to be full send it for some of these teams. I think that was unintentional. Knockdown is underneath on the ground. This might not be a bad spot. The portal's actually going to bring him up. My goodness, that was scary.
Thank you, Magnus. That is a honor badge for Mobile Lamb. Trying to survive in as they can provide a reasonable amount of cover around this respawn beacon, but it is not consistent by any means. They find themselves eventually in a lot of trouble. We've seen Deadwood show up to kill feed a few times, but it's not nearly as many as I'm sure that they would like. On the low ground to do Dumpers, finding a few members already knocked. Take them out. It looks like it might be TSS. Maintain control of the point, will not give up their spot just yet. If this game be not worth it for them, it gets much, much later. Giving up your spot in order to find a few extra points, very rare.
Dumpers on that catwalk now has the sight of a few, pick up some KP there, down to 9 teams now. I take that back, down to 8 teams. That's Nightswing team getting in on the action. They still hold what you can consider to be the best spot or one of the best spots going into this last zone. So Team Sheesh looking to make a statement after missing week number 1. We know all the names on that team. This is their chance to make a name for themselves in another way. Hey, hello there, down to 16.
That's a good knock, but Kenny now defending. Love has a little bit of help from his friends, but now with the knock coming in towards the Benchwarmers, making short work of that squad. They still got to contend, of course, with Team Sheesh that we talked about earlier, but more importantly, high ground. There's very limited ways to do so. If they don't do it soon, there's not a little while left. This ring is closing. Not a whole lot of actual access to the high ground. And Sheesh, they've already got one knocked on the high ground. It's never been more important. Missing off while on the top. If they can hold out, certainly one of them going to go down. I think Timmy's still alive and full health to fight for the team. It's Joy Boys who are running ledge right now, and they can fire down on below for ages.
It's Timmy, I think, just flew straight up in the air. Decided to say, you know what, I'm going to play my life. That life is now over. And Benchwarmers, there's no way up here. This is game. That is game. Benchwarmers did pick up the KP that they needed to do. This was strategic, but they are out, and we have our game 1 winners here in just a moment by way of doing nothing. Great job, Joy Boys. Look, they did their job before this. They played the zone, they got it, and here they are.
I mean, they killed Team Sheesh as well. So honestly, one of the best ways that it could have gone down. They're gonna,
across the goal.
yeah, they're just gonna have a little bit of fun right here. There's not too much left to
They
do.
forced the bubble.
And then the portal here, I don't think it'll work, as Rambo does end up falling through the ring. Just like that. Easy peasy. It may not have been the most exciting ring at the end, and I feel kind of betrayed by it, as there's no real way to get up there, but that's what you get for owning the ledge, am I right?
Look, the west side there is always the best side, and playing the building where Sheesh was, had they not lost a member, we could be looking at something entirely different. But it was Joy Boys, the one that came. They said, hey, you know what? We're just a little bit to the north. We'd like to say hello, and we'd like to put you out of the game. Timmy did end up flying to the air. He dropped to the bottom. That KP ended up going over to that of Benchwarmers that were on the ground. You could see they were very deliberate with how they wanted to do. They had Benchwarmers on one donut, and you had Dumpers on the other. That catwalk is normally decided between 2 teams, and it was Benchwarmers who ended up winning that. They took that KP, they got some underneath off of those shots down below. So they played strategic. Benchwarmers got a lot of points, but it's Joy Boys, the ones that took home the victory. I wouldn't be surprised with Benchwarmers in a 2nd place finish, and that KP might actually be first in this lobby in terms of points.
Yeah, very likely that they are, actually. And to figure that out, Jayhound, the only thing that we can do is take a short break and do some math on the back end, because we were in Lava Fisher for a lot of that time, but a lot of these teams came from very far away, collected some KP that we did not get the chance to see. So we're going to check that out, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, folks. You guys have definitely done your jobs of cheering me up in chat. I am really, really enjoying the excitement off of that first game. As man, oh man, was it fun, Jay? How we had some crazy performances, and I want to see how Benchwarmers stacked up.
Yeah, I mean, Lava Fissure houses so many teams, and that's what a Lava Fissure inning looks like. Very fun, but it is Benchwarmers, despite that second place, had enough KP to get that first place finish. But this is a very big sign. First place only had 17 points. Now, we're used to seeing 20+ points in a lot of our game number ones. This means that nobody is starting off with a big statement game. Dumpers had 11 kills. They ended up with 14 points. If they had gotten a higher placement, things would have looked great. But sheesh, of course, everybody's going to be looking at that team, seeing what they can do competitively. They finished 4th. So these teams, everybody's going to have a way to get back into this, but Benchwarmers comes out first in terms of points.
Now, for some of those teams, the road is going to be longer than others. As well, if we had a chance, or if you were looking through the bottom sort of teams there, something that really stood out to me was the fact that Noble didn't really make it anywhere. They ended up leaving with 0 points in 20th place, and that is, I know, not the way that they wanted to start the day. And not having gathered any points out of game one is still really difficult. I know that we've seen some crazy things, Jay How, but it's going to take a very high average point game for them to come back in the face of if Benchwarmers keep playing like this.
Yeah, we know it's not unobtainable, but when you started the day, we talked about Noble and Benchwarmers is a front runner. They will always frag, and they will always have good placements. It's very rare that they don't perform well. Now, their weekend performances weren't anything stellar compared to their week one, but they get here, they know what to do, and when they are here, they perform. So how well they do in relation to everybody else, Noble does have ground to make up after game number one now. So we'll see what they can do here as it's time for game number two.
Yeah, we're going to find out how things change now, as we're more than likely going to get a very, very different end game. I'd be surprised if we get a one that ended so much like that off of the second game in a row. As there are very few places in World's Edge that can actually end up with somebody not having to do anything to clutch those last 3 KP. But now, as we end up dropping, we're going to see that the zone has done a total Uno reverse card, and now we're heading over to Noble's house over towards this overlooked geyser area.
Yeah, Noble does this thing to where they land in No Name just north of Geyser and they scan the beacon, but our Overlook team is actually in that vicinity now too. I wonder if that will be some dynamics later, but this definitely favors Noble. They get the scan, they can get into No Name, they can find a building for them to hold down long term. Much better positioning. The rotation all but non-existent for a team like Noble. Meanwhile, our team of Benchwarmers, they always land Frag West. They have central point of the map. They can really go anywhere from a really good rotational point.
Yeah, that is the benefit of Fragment. I feel like nobody... I don't think we have enough conversation about Fragment landing zones and what that means, but they are really, really easy to loot. They have really good loot paths, and more importantly, they have access to so much because they're central on the map. There's a lot of risk that comes with landing Fragment, landing places like Harvest or even Lava Siphon that are very central, but at the same time, it's why we know the names of the teams that land there over and over. It's because you can really put out these really consistent performances because your game plan, the time that it takes you to reach different POIs, doesn't change nearly as much. And with that consistency, you can do so much.
That's why I think that Harvester is such a big deal now that it has the beacon. You know, TSM, I talk about them. It's hard to ignore them. They land fraggies. When it was Kings Canyon back in the day, they landed in the middle of the map. There's a reason why. It's a strategical point, so you can make any zone. And when there's a beacon there, it's great, which is why I think Harvester is such an interesting topic for a lot of the teams. When they saw that the beacon was added there, now it kind of is a similar effect just on the other side of the horizon with a good loot spot and a lot of easy rotations out of there. So for the teams that play Harvester, you might see their names springing up more and more.
Now, you did mention the Climatizer contest last game, and now, Jay How, it has come to fruition. Like a lot of teams just prioritize the loot that can come up here, and well, the Rampage hasn't found that many shots just yet. Still really nice gun to get yourself a little bit of, oh no, there's a really nice gun to get yourself a little bit of damage, I say, as they lose a member.
Well, when it's time to defend, you throw a Thermite in the Rampage and you hold your ground. They might have to do just that. It's going to be the Thirst. Now it might just be full retreat. Do you force the fight, or do you live to play as a duo with the next zone not being very far away? You don't have to leave it. I don't want to say you banner camp a little, but you definitely don't allow them for the next few moments to come over here. And if you can capitalize and move up on this duo squad, you most certainly come through. And it looks like that's what they're going to do.
Right now, as that Havoc does a lot of work, but doesn't do enough. The Evo will finish him off, and that is yet another member, another squad even falling. 19 teams remain, and we get to have a little bit of fun in the meantime.
Yeah, you know, I just let them know, this is your box. Thought I'd put my imprint on it. Meanwhile, that is a flight to the top of the ridge just south of Epicenter. Never Lucky, a team that's holding Diner in Frag East. If the zone does pull towards those train tracks just beside them near where they're pinging or just north of where they're pinging, it's a great spot to rotate out from. There are some that do end near the train tracks. Time will tell, but you got to imagine they'll be more than okay with chilling here for quite some time. They're the team that landed Frag East, and they're just going to park here for, well, probably zone 4 or 5 at minimum.
Yeah, Never Lucky doesn't seem like they want to play these lobbies super aggressively. They didn't do it last game, and just based on their positioning right now, the fact that there's not even a whole lot of scouting going on outside, it's more of just in the area looking around, tells me that they likely want to play this one the same way. Interestingly enough, we've got similar playstyles evolving inside of No Name, but there are a lot of teams stacked up here as running No Name, or at least being in the area for the third parties, can be really useful. By the same token, though, having so many teams right here makes it kind of hard for fights to well and truly break out.
Yeah, No Name has all the teams that poke, everybody that stays here. Benchwarmers, one of the teams not adapting to the new meta, sticking to the older meta. They like to stick to what works. I mean, how long have we seen Madness on Raid? You know, I mean, sometimes you just go with what works, and they are running the Bloodhound. They'll get the scans, they'll get the information, but you have to be very weary now of the Caustic teams. The bubble does cancel the gas, but you've seen teams force the bubble, and when the bubble comes out and the bubble goes, the gas comes out. That's when things get troubling in these tight buildings.
It's definitely troubling right now, even for a team like Benchwarmers, and maybe even more, as there's a little bit of a push going on into the truck, and it's going to be what looks like a pretty simple wipe, but it's not on a simple team, as that was, in fact, TSS that were taken out inside of the truck just there. Definitely a squad that we talked about having a lot of individual talent. They go alongside in sort of name and talent alongside teams like Benchwarmers and alongside Sheesh that I wanted to bring up and compare earlier, because Benchwarmers seem like Sheesh, but just with a lot more competitive experience.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many talented people in here. You talk about people that are either, you know, a lot of people say, oh, you're a content creator. Some of them just say you're competitive. I mean, you would say Madness probably leans more towards the competitive side. He's extremely driven, where you see Timmy and Wig, some people would say maybe not as much. But the competitive drive of these players, and you look at somebody like Wig, that man is a competitor at heart, no matter what he's doing. I mean, so you can compare the two. They might be slightly on the other side of each other, but in terms of talent, you were talking about some of the most talented players in the Apex scene, period. And so for them to be on that many on just 2 teams combined, it's a wonderful thing to see. And when you think that when that competitive side catches up for Sheesh, how dominant that team has in terms of their potential.
And we get to see them play against each other in these lobbies as well, which is a real treat, especially for the preseason qualifiers. Imagine what it's going to be like when Pro League starts up. At the very least, for right now, we're taking another little bit of a chill pill until those next couple rounds. We're only in the first right now, and as we pan over to Geyser, we get to see a chance at how Lonely fans are dealing with their own early game, as they've been hanging out up by this northeastern end of Geyser, playing with their long-range weapons. L-Star, not traditionally something you'd think of as long-range, but with its very low bullet drop, it still gives you a chance to sort of fight it out with those longbows.
I'm surprised there's this many teams housing here for this long. I mean, the scan is here for one of our teams. They know it's going to be pulling. The odds of it pulling down here, basically 0 at this point. Sheesh, on the other side, they have a scan. everybody has a Valkyrie, so it does make it so you can get in. But that real estate now that's going to be a no name, I mean, I don't really know what the play is. You can play this choke up here, which is great. You're normally going to have a fight as you come down. You can even go into the garage building for certain teams, but just playing this choke is enough. They're actually going backwards just so they can use their Valkyrie ults. They're playing away from the zone. We'll need to heal up first. Shoot for him coming from Timmy, but I really want to see where they land. If they can get out, Nice Wig keeps getting peppered.
Man, oh man, they're lucky to make it out alive, actually. Losing your Gibraltar would be a death sentence, basically. You don't have that sort of on-demand cover. The bubble already dropped. Now we'll have to see if they can use that Valk ult to nice success, if they maybe need to move themselves outside around that ring as well, because it's still in the cards for them to tank a little bit of ring damage to reposition. Since they are out of Geyser, they're definitely a lot happier, though, as you can see in the kill feed. We are lighting it up elsewhere.
Lonely fans will have to go through the choke, and that choke in the tunnel normally is met with a lot of resistance. One team potentially in there, maybe two teams now that this map was opened up this season. So I think they're content with hanging out here, waiting for the Valk ult, maybe test the waters a little to go through that. If things don't work out, they just have to be careful of being rotated on from behind. Right now, sitting in zone, I think they're content with making use of that Valk ult, and it is going to be Noble, the team, at least one of the teams, sitting in towards the northeastern side of this.
That's exciting. I actually really like that Noble are in the tunnel, because we saw them picking up a few kills earlier, and we were just talking about how the tunnel can kind of be a death trap. And we talked about this in the morning with EMEA, and now we might get to see that pan out again. It's just around that elevator is a very, very valuable piece of real estate to hold on to. And the nice thing is that Noble are camping out the exit as well, so giving themselves a lot of ability to control chokes, to decide what teams get to make it in and don't.
If this does pull further to the east near them, they definitely control the fates of not just a couple of teams, but several teams beyond that. And they watch their back, they have that zip covered, and then everything in front of them allows them to get poked, build up those shields, use that longbow that we saw. However, if it does pull more towards the village here in No Name, then they have a little bit difficult rotation. Coming downhill, there's not many ways to get cover, at least safely. So they'll have to get creative if it does pull here. With round 2 ending in 3 seconds, we'll be able to get some more information here in just a moment.
When we, not just we, but these teams get that information, there's going to be a likely very rapid shift by a lot of teams, especially those with the Valkyrie ultimates up, to try and relocate, claim real estate that is getting sparser and sparser. I like the fact that Noble are taking a look up on top of the storage holds right there, because or the silos rather, because though they can't claim them themselves, though they don't have any vertical movement inside of their kits, knowing which teams can rain down shots on you from above or can't going to be super useful for them. Who else chooses to contest them, though, as in 30 seconds we'll have an idea of whether it's pulling down towards tunnels and tunnels are safe, or more likely, I think, Jay-How, is where outside of tunnels is it pulling, and we get to see the rat race that comes with the attempt to rotate through.
I'll say this, there's a lot of teams that are taking a much slower pace. And if you watched the EMEA broadcast earlier, you know that teams were playing edge of zone, trying to get some of those picks. But I think different zones call for different strategies. But when you look at Lava Fisher, a lot of buildings to sit in, you don't have to fight outside of zone. There's a lot of real estate to be had. Same, I think, here for No Name on the east side, where these teams are more content with just playing zone, playing the peaks, and hoping that it comes to them. And now we do see Noble, the team that is on the far east, that spot up top isn't going to be there. And coming down from that hill, if we look at the minimap, they're already making their way back into tunnel to see if they can try and come out of tunnel, because coming down that hill is no easy task, because there's just not a lot of cover. So they need to try and play zone, but they will inevitably have company within that tunnel.
Our eyes on. I like the fact that we're getting a nice overlook, though. Bench warmers, not nearly so much, have not moved in the past little while. They know that they are safe where they are. They've got blue shields, and while it may not be the best position for them to now. I think the fact that they aren't peeking and instead conserving their ammunition for these fights tells me a lot about their confidence to take these fights, to find the third parties with those blue shields and get the shield swaps on the teams that they kill. I think that's the style that we're playing for right now, and it's about conserving your energy momentum till that point.
Teams that do hold in the building, I think that is a knock and a kill here from Never Lucky. And so they have reaped some rewards from holding Diner. They won't be able to hold it for much longer. But that works out in their favor. They can play up underneath the bridge in front of them, maybe onto the tracks. And so a lot can be made from this rotation. I'm just really trying to figure out how a team like Never Lucky can use this position to move their way in, because it does seem like it's pulling much further south. So they'll have to fight their way in here soon.
Yeah, I like that they're not moving just in yet, and maybe I'm not sure whether that's going to be the best move for them ultimately, but at the very least, I like that they're holding off for now, because the fact that they have these sort of long range weaponry will allow them to pick up kills from very, very far away as everybody else moves. Because they're technically in the ring right now, there's no real rush for them, and instead, it's about keeping your eyes on teams that are going to have to come down from epicenter, that we're holding that high ground to rotate through there already. There may be some that we're lagging behind.
15 squads left, 30 seconds away from round number 3 closing. All the buildings that we saw are still going to hold a lot of teams. It's the teams like Noble that have to come in, the teams to the north here up on the hill that have to come down. Those are the teams where you're going to see the most action for people rotating in to try and eliminate some of those teams on their way in to get in safely without being shot from the teams that are going to be gatekeeping and waiting for you to come in.
Amy right next to them, waiting on that ring to close, as now we're going to get the next information. And oh my lord, the informational drop is a lot. There's a lot of ground to cover right now, and already the ping has come down. bullseye has the Valkyrie ult available. R99 and a charge rifle. Going to be decent skirmishing weapons. Charge rifle not so much, but R99 with a fast reload speed would allow them to fight it out wherever they land. It's an extremely difficult comp to execute, but they gotta get into a building. If they gotta get into that truck that was wiped earlier, there's a chance that they can do it. It's about waiting for the right time now, and now with the charge rifle potentially taking a few of those kills off of the high ground as domes are going down. There's a lot of blood that's about to be spilled.
It's a matter, do you want to go now, or do you want to wait till that zone is breathing down your neck? And depending on where you sit within this zone will determine on which one you take. The teams on the choke to the left, on the west of this, they have to fight their way in, and there's not much cover. There's a couple of peaks that stick up in terms of rock outings that are just beside here. And I mean, there's not room but for one team there. There are train tracks that a team can come under. There's the res spot there with a couple of head peaks. You've got 14 teams and about 3 spots that those teams can confidently take, while you have the entire lobby sitting on the middle of No Name that's going to be looking out of their windows trying to figure out who can we grief here on their way in as they're fighting. Can we steal some of this KP? And we're about to find out in about 10 seconds.
RSMP. A lot of shots, though, have made their way through the elite initial rotate down. Defensive bombardment comes out, and that's going to be the call that draws in the bubble. They still need a safe place to get to, though, and they are right outside of the ring, pushing in towards the choke, using ordinances to clear the way. They're going to try and make this one work, but they're receiving shots from the low ground, have to back right back off. Still have everybody alive for now. They're being full sent on from the back. It might just be taken down again. It comes out. There's a close range fight where they are down one member. I think two very soon. If the grapple doesn't take you very far, SMP, they end up going down to Never Lucky, right on the edge of the ring.
Yeah, they are on the edge of the ring, but they have to move in here. And this is going to be the team. They're going to have to go through not just one team. They're going to have to go through another. It looks like they've got some knocks so far. R99 tracking, trying to play right on the edge of this zone. Even the charge rifle comes out to get some damage. Caustic ult is there, but look at this. There's going to be Never Lucky somehow finding their way from Diner, flying up, and then making their way. They are fighting like crazy for their spot. They have earned a lot of KP in a very short amount of time and a pretty decent spot to come down here.
And we sort of lined that up perfectly as well, with them sitting for so long in that Diner, looking at the best position, and then completely changing the course of the game with a really nice Valkyrie ult to clean that up. They put themselves in one of the better positions in lobby, the only one with control of the high ground right now, as everybody is going to be to the northern end of No Name. The only thing they got to worry about is what sort of cover are they going to use on the way down, because they've got a rock right now that's giving them a little bit of safety, but there's going to be a heck of a lot of fighting down here, and maybe a heck of a lot of focus up towards that high ground if they don't call this push just right.
The team underneath here is one of the better placed teams. You kind of are out of sight, out of mind. Everybody knows you're there, but it's almost impossible to push. It's only when the zone closes that everybody kind of apes there, and whether you get shot in going in. You have bench warmers in the building just off to the side. They have to move up potentially underneath that eastern part of that building as well. The garage building, you have to move down to the south side, so you will be exposed in the opening. The team underneath is going to be the team that has to move out as well. So the teams here on the other side, those are the teams that are going to have the shots, and the team in the choke. There is one in the choke going into the tunnel. That's the one.
What an amazing arc jar from CPR Certified. It solo clears out the one squad to try and take them down. The one squad that actually pops out on them, and now we get to see yet another fight. Looks like this is up against Noble inside of the tunnel. Slurpee ends up finding one on Rakinishu, and now they end up losing two right in return. It's all up to Golden right now to fight this one out against the remaining members of Noble. Will they be third party in the tunnel or not? They even so much work. He ends up taking another one with him, and now being finally taken down by the last remaining member of Noble. We'll see if they can recover in time, because everybody should have heard that.
Yeah, I'm surprised somebody didn't try and come around the corner, but all those teams are so focused on each other. Noble might be able to get the reses off and be able to fight for the zone, and it is right outside their front door. So they are going to have plenty of loot, but look at this action on the garage building. Who's going to poke out first? Who's going to play around that? And it's all about CLX, the team underneath. They're the ones that are trying to create the most chaos, get some thirst here. They're going to get that. So CLX does get a couple of kills right here. The ring even getting involved. CLX just trying to wrap long enough to the other side, but it is out. We are down to 3 teams.
Out by Dumpers on the way there, but Dumpers in turn going to be taken out by the new fresh Noble, who have left the station. 3 squads left, and Dumpers is one of them. They're being picked apart right now. Take a look over at that high ground though, and you've got to imagine that still got yet another full squad ready to send it down, as we have well and truly prepared for this. Totally different angles though puts Dumpers in the hardest position, as Noble is staring right at them, and there is not a whole lot of cover they can use as this next ring is going to close. Handing over to Never Lonely, the one team that's on the high ground. They're going to try and pull this as an out of bounds maneuver, it looks, or at least take the very late drop to avoid some of the fire. Move, but it's going to put them right on top of Noble here. They have control of this high ground, and they're not dropping just yet. They're buying as much time as they can to cause as much chaos on the low ground.
Yeah, Noble has the dominant position. We'll see if Never Lucky, a team that has made fantastic rotations, will be able to take this. They just can't be exposed. The team at the garage, Noble, they are going to be pinched between either. They either need to force this fight versus Noble, or they're just going to be met on the other side. And Noble has the most cover. They have the door to go out. So Never Lucky, they're waiting for this door to close to make sure nobody gets shot in the back. Noble giving them a greeting. It's all on this other corner. Time to say hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Noble needs to claw their way back. Will Never Lucky finally get lucky? Those are the questions as we approach this last round. It starts closing in. These teams are going to be forced together. Never Lucky going to eat a lot of damage first, though. They take the initial chunk right now. The Gibraltar Ultimate going to not hit them just yet, as they're safe for now in the ring. Doesn't force them out of cover just at playing this as slow as they possibly can. Dumpers are still waiting for them, though. Fortunately, the bubble is right back up. Noble waiting inside the tunnel as long as they can as well. You need the needs. Don't have them at this point. And Never Lucky are going to be forced to take this fight. One down. They find Ozark. Still 3 squads up though. And another bubble comes out as Noble ends up finding the knock.
Noble is going to try and clean this up. They are the team with the position. They come out with both the bubbles down. It is their bubble that will reign supreme. Noble down to the last team left, playing up on the high ground, and it's Noble now with game 2 as the champion squad have come through after an abysmal game number 1, have hopefully turned the tides a little bit as they are the game 2 winners. A zone much more favorable for them, but it was about how they played it. They did not go in and try and take a spot in No Name. They chose to play the tunnel and the chokes there. They fought their way. Impulse had an insane clutch down to probably 3 health, won that, took out Golden versus the Gibby, and they had that position after the res, and from there it was smooth sailing, but it wasn't without a few bumps, but a killer game there from Noble.
Really, really amazing stuff. Noble crushed that. And you talked about the positioning there with the choosing not to go into No Name. After they play tunnel, give them so much flexibility to play aggressive on teams that were trying to use that rotation, to poke their heads out and come back to safety. And the fact that they didn't get third party JHAL, I have to say, is honestly a miracle, because that was free KP.
There were so many teams at the garage. I mean, you kind of funnel in through that one spot because the zone lip was right at the garage door. Even the teams inside have to come out. And as they breached the walls, you could see they were trying to fight in the choke, trying not to come over the wall right near those boxes on the east side of the building. They got up and over. And once that is crested, there's no way out. So you try and funnel in underneath, you try and fight. So the team underneath all of a sudden has 3 teams barreling at them, and it's just kind of a matter of who comes out. But major shout outs to Never Lucky, teams that had good positioning of Noble and Never Lucky. Fraggy's team, Geyser team, they both managed to make those work in their favor and come out with top 3 finishes.
Now I can't wait to see how many points Noble have gotten since they didn't get anything in the first game. Where are they in the leaderboard? We're going to take a short break, and we're going to be right back.
In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you.
reasons to doubt, try to keep me down, but I'll put the flame out. You can't get to me. Throw your sticks and your stones, go break all of my bones. You won't ache my soul, you can't get to me. And there is no barricade that I can tear away. Shoot me down, we'll fire away, away. But I'm a heavyweight. I'm a heavyweight. I'm a heavyweight. I'm a
Welcome back, folks, as we return to the preseason qualifiers. We've done 2 games at J-How. We got 4 more to go, and we're about to hit that halfway point with Noble taking away their victory in the second game after a abysmal first game for them. I want to see how they ended up stacking up.
Yeah, you got to imagine that's a big turnaround for them. It's just a matter of how did everybody else between game 1 and game 2, what type of consistency did they have? With Dumpers, they had a good game number 1, came out with another good game here in game number 3. So Noble, with that first place finish, 7 KP do put themselves up there. Never Lucky making a statement as well.
Yeah, this is really, really good stuff for those 2 teams that did need to get going. I think Dumpers, weirdly enough, have themselves one of the better positions in the lobby. And hey, as I say it, there it is, right at the top of the cumulative standings, 28 points for Dumpers, and Never Lucky and Benchwarmers following them up. Noble in 5th place, though, to get themselves into a position now where, though it'll be difficult, J-How, they can take this.
Yeah, I mean, because the points aren't that drastic in these games, I think a lot of teams still will be able to catch up in this. TSS, a team that was dominant this weekend, only have a couple of points so far throughout. So a lot of things are still to be determined. Sheesh, a little bit lower down on the list in game number 2. And I wanted to go back to that point because I don't want to discredit the history of Timmy and Nicewig, because when you look at their history between NRG, CLG, all the teams that they've been a part of even before, even Madness and Wig being teammates before, the reason I made that comment was because Madness is a grinder. Madness is a hardcore competitive player. His greatest successes are him playing competitively. And those players between Timmy and Wig did play previously in competitive. It was during the game's infancy of the competitive scene, and they stepped away from that. Whereas Madness fully cemented himself as a competitive grinder. He's found a home. He's found different ways for him to play. He's that guy that will play every tournament, where the other 2 maybe lean a little bit more the other direction. I'm not saying that they can't compete. I just wanted to kind of further emphasize the point of where they stand as of now, because if you look at the activity that both of those or those respective names have had over the past year, it has been Madness fully implanting himself into the competitive scene, where the others haven't been as active, but they are here trying to make a name for themselves. Very competitive players, and I didn't mean any disrespect towards them. I just wanted to say Madness is a hardcore grinder in the competitive scene.
Yeah, absolutely is. And I think that, I mean, a big part of that is that if they weren't competitive, they wouldn't be here, J-How. Like, no 2 ways about it. Everybody who's arrived in the final round of the preseason qualifiers here has that fire in them. But as you say, experience really has counted for a lot, and you can see it coming through with Benchwarmers as well. They've been relatively consistent today, although I will say last game was not exactly their game. They still ended up picking up several KP, and now they're going to try it on a totally new ring, as now we're pulling towards Thermal Station and giving those center of the map teams a little bit of a different place to go to. Well, a lot of people are going to have to sprint their way across a lot of open ground.
But Thermal, a lot of people are familiar with Thermal. At one point, it felt like a lot of zones were going to Thermal. So all these teams do have experience across the map. Make no mistake about it. Climatizer and Lava Siphon being new point of interest, but they know how to manage those. Thermal has been around untouched. That entire area pretty much looks the same other than the staging area, but that's been there for a while. But so many Thermal zones, you know everybody knows how to play this one.
Yeah, this is something that a lot of these guys will be familiar with. I'm expecting a team like SMP to make their way down really quickly, although I am surprised by the specific landing of Depressly, as he didn't quite get the normal drop, I'll say, as now moving in towards Lava Siphon will have a lot more loot available to him, lest that be contested early by another team who wanted to try and drop a little bit more central. Speaking of contention, Never Lucky already getting into a little bit of a fight, and we get to take a look at Climatizer, where we are not getting the same level of action that we did just 20 minutes ago.
Enemy spotted.
Never Lucky making the rotation from Frag East, looking to maybe get some early action. They know that teams come down from Overlook. Even Noble likes to come up. So not exactly the normal spot I think you would see.
Target spotted. Hostile spotted.
Early fights here.
Going to be pretty good stuff from Never Lucky, as this was a pretty high action zone just earlier. They got to be aware of who they're running into. Very likely could still be a lagging member of Noble. We know they like to split up right now, and taking them out right now would be a really big blow. Sometimes we get Impulse dropping around trying to get just the survey beacon. They should be gone already, and it seems like we got 3 members all stacked up there. None of them seem particularly like their Noble silhouettes. We'll get the chance to see who they are if they end up taking this engagement. As right now, it seems like the disengage is the way to go.
Justifiably so, and trying to catch somebody out on the other end of zone. So just go ahead and use the bubble to get the beacon scan for themselves. Know that there's nobody else nearby. We'll rotate in.
Oh Lord, it was promos that are disengaging from there, but I can see with our highlights that Noble are not too far away from them, making their way instead towards that mid-range of Lava Siphon, about 500 meters away. We've still got Presley looting up in Lava Siphon as well, the rest of him and the SMP squad, while Bad Boys end up taking the more northerly rotation, taking them towards that side of Harvester, perhaps Central if they choose to go this way. Geyser going to help out on one of the rotations, though, as CPR, panning over to them, already have themselves a nice caustic up building over by Thermal Station, unlikely to move for the next little while. CPR certified, pretty comfortable here, and they've got that Valkyrie ult if they really needed to relocate, but more than that, it's going to be about holding a building whose doors have already been taken out.
I want to see who's willing to take the top part of Thermal. I mean, it's not exactly the most exciting. You don't get a lot of KP up there, but who's willing to be the gatekeeper for a lot of the teams rotating in, or whether anybody? You got to imagine we see a lot of zones towards the buildings just on the northern side of Thermal. But we also see them pull over here, so rarely do you see them in and around the center. But when they do, that center area is strong based on the scan that we have so far. Could be in their favor for sure.
Almost find the knock is Roller Theory rolling up on the outside of staging right now. A lot of ability to find the knocks there as they crack the purple shield and are going to throw out not an ordnance, but instead an ultimate. See if that ends up finding anything. There should be enough warning that things are going to be okay for them, and Roller Theory can't play this too aggressive, so they go fishing. They don't catch anything, and instead will try to disengage, get themselves a little bit of a better engagement later, but more importantly, some real estate and some resources to work with as we go further into the day. Over here, Sign Us Please hanging out outside looking for a push, as there's definitely going to be some blood going down around here. This is attracting a lot of attention as well, but that may have to wait until later. But right now, we, from the outside, know that Sign Us Please definitely win a face value here as they got the double purple.
Now, these are the buildings I was talking about. That right there, if it pulls over here, they're in great spot. If it goes more towards the fence line, they have to fight each other, but they can do so in an isolated environment. We do have a team already up on top with Cruisin' and team. They'll have plenty of time to poke. You gotta hope that they've got plenty of ammo to keep them busy for a while. That's almost unpushable. It is the spot that's there, but it's similar to playing an epicenter. While you do have high ground and it's almost unpushable, you just don't really get a lot of KP by sitting there.
No, and you got to kind of hope that that'll come to you later, or that the positioning pays off, but it's sort of risky to play up there in a very weird way because of that, because you don't tend to get a whole lot of the points that come with being a little bit more active on the map. You also have to invest in that really paying off in terms of your placement, and that's something that is not a certainty at this point. CLX, one of the returning teams that have claimed that spot. Really hoping that they can move higher than 14th this time. They've already had a relatively good day so far, put on some pretty good performances, but haven't been one of the teams that clinched the win. Joy Boys and Noble, the only ones holding that title, and we're going to get a third more than likely moving out of here. It seems like New Era in this building, though, perfectly content to wait as well, as they're also sort of playing the positioning game.
Hey, thanks.
Well, more of a sit-and-wait strategy, but Never Lucky, one of the dominant teams last game, active here within Harvester being run at. The Flatline's going to have to try and defend as one of the members is running away, and now that's going to be the death of Jibby. There's no way out now. So for Never Lucky, see if they can rebound. Got the caustic traps down to at least buy some time with Joy Boys pushing forward.
Okay, Joy Boys. Maybe they can find their next win over here, although the gas is keeping them hemmed in a little bit. The shield bats are going to be enough to keep them up. We haven't seen Never Lucky get thirsted in the kill feed just yet, so Harvester has not fully become a bloodbath. We'll see how much that changes, as I'm sure attempted reses are going to be going on pretty darn soon. We're still inside of that next ring. Second ring so far with 2 minutes until it's closed. It gives a lot of teams time to vie for position, and not just that, the best position. Noble seem to have gotten a pretty good one on the outside of tree, but we'll need to move in as the ring closes.
Yeah, we haven't quite gotten a look at all of our teams. We know that launch site is where Team Sheesh likes to land. You've got to imagine they're probably out already. Kind of hard to tell by skins right now, so they'll be tagged on their way out. They don't normally stay there too long, and if they do get stuck there, they do have a Valk ult. So Noble gatekeeping the launch site, but it looks like they're going to rotate in, and they'll try and play the high ground just in front of them.
Target over there.
Trying to play the tree right now is it's going to be a little bit difficult for them to work with. Right here is where a lot of teams will fall short, trying to figure out which side they want to play, whether they want to play inside the tunnel as well, which is viable, but also a little bit of a trap if you come out on the other side and are not prepared with a Wraith Portal or some equivalent sort of safety. Harvester, home to a lot of action going down, is going to see how this one ends up shaking out for Golden and the squad. SXG needing to push in right now, seem to have found their opening, and it looks like Jumper showing up in the kill feed as well.
That's a stick.
Harvester can use it to evolve. The big explosion is going to herald likely a win of the fight, but being taken down, shot in the back. SXG have to think twice about committing to that, and instead get full send onto their fallen member, and unfortunately, a Thirst gonna fall again. It's Never Lucky. End up at least taking on KP before they go down portal. Follow them right over, though. Very little help to work with, and no flatline shots to connect. They're gonna end up going down to SXG, who are now short one member.
Yeah, they had a really good push and a great start to that, but there was a stick on Slurpee, forcing Slurpee to use that phase out to negate that, and that's why you saw the Octane kind of shift one direction. That isolated them. He ended up losing the 1v1 to the shotgun to a Jibby, which is pretty common. Now they have to hope that there's a mobile res or a spot they can res. You know they would have liked to keep them up. They ran the portal, weren't able to get there in time. They weren't able to defend. So down to a member, they have the banner. Looks like they might try and go east, at least to go. Oh, it looks like they've got a mobile res. That's great. That is fantastic for them.
Yeah, I saw that ping and I was like, there's nothing really out there for you, but the nice thing is that there isn't anything out there waiting for you either. Most teams should have vacated the area already. With the ring closing, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get that res off in time, if they're even going to do it, as it seemed like there was a little bit of hesitancy there. Noble have moved in the meantime towards this low ground inside of the truck, leaving SMP up on top, as it seemed like there was a little bit of hesitancy there. Noble have moved in the meantime towards this low ground inside of the truck, leaving SMP up on top on the high ground, which is, I would say, widely considered the dominant position here. You get to control a lot of the choke, but also have a really, really nice, easy rotation back inside of Thermal Station from up here by tree.
I actually like this from Noble, because we still don't know where the next zone is going to be, so they don't want to commit to their positioning yet. So they're saving their Valk ult for that repositioning part, because if it does pull further north, they might be able to play around the eastern side of this cliff. else they can fly over and further into thermal. So they have a couple of options. I like their patience here. They don't have to force anything, so it's a really good look for them. Round number 2 about to close, then we'll have some more information shortly after as round 3 comes up soon.
Sheesh seem to be holding up just fine for themselves as they get a little gas trap placed by the portal. Gonna know with a little alarm system whether that one ends up hunting for them or not. We're about halfway into the day, as we said, and a lot of these teams have yet to have a real breakout game. We've got some really good stuff happening, but nobody's pulled 10 points or more away. And Bad Boys giving somebody a point, it seems, unless they can get that res in. There's fire from above and below them, even to the side. Bad Boys running a whole lot of ways to answer back. Teammate to see if this will work. Very nice shot. Flatline end up keeping them up. Will it be the 1v3 like we saw earlier in the day? It doesn't look like it. We still have to remember from above, from the side as well. It seems like Bad Boys actually get to hold on for a little while longer. I don't know how much longer it will be, though, as still, they're likely to lose one with not a whole lot of ability to reposition.
They got an assist from another team, and it looks like that is actually going to be TSS, a team that has been relatively quiet through our first 2 games, even getting the shots there. So great pickup for them. They do have a res opportunity behind them. The likelihood of somebody coming through zone is low, but not impossible. So they could get a res off here. It's just who's willing to react the minute that they see that to come over here and maybe punish them for trying to get that res.
I gotta say, guys, for anybody that has been looking in the top right corner of your screen, it has been the Dumpers show this whole time, and it's very likely they're the ones that come around and punish, because it seems like they have been everywhere on the map, cleaning up kills left and right. We haven't actually had the camera on them for too long this game, but I can't wait for when we do, and we get to see how much they've been involved, how many points they've gotten, as they very well may have a high enough KP game that ends up netting them inside of the top 3 already at this point. Taking a really wide look, though, at the thermal station layout. We're going to see where this next ring is going to pull very, very shortly. We're still waiting with a lot of teams that will have to move quickly as well, but with all of the stacking that we're getting in the east over here, very well might choke up a little bit.
Those teams that took that village near the train station, those are the teams that have that prime position. So the teams on the west side of Thermal are forced to make plays like this. Buff Pathfinder, they're going to have to try and get scans from this, see if there's a safe place to land. They see that they're going to have company. This is the team that just res. They're going to be looted up. So Buff Pathfinder, they're going to be landing, and they're going to be hurting with an Arc Star right on top of them. This is going to be almost impossible to defend. If they do, it's going to be one heck of a clutch. The zone's moving up on them as well. So Buff Pathfinder, they've survived a little bit for now. Blinded here by the zone. I can barely see, but they are getting shelled out by nades. Like they're getting a few shots from elsewhere, but they do get one knock. And yeah, the Rampart wall is helping out for sure. How much longer, we don't know. Bad Boys, they're down to 1. Buff Pathfinder down to 1. And Buff Pathfinder actually has more cover to get the res off.
And once, I don't know how they do it. I have no idea how they end up surviving there, as it looked really, really iffy for a while, but somehow they managed to dissuade that push and now have the wall to work with as well. It is no small thing to have this gifted cover in front of them, especially since it'll amp their damage on the way out. We got a lot to be thankful for. As over here on the more southern end, it seems like Noble, they're also still waiting for their own way in.
They're good. I just got a sneak peek. This is their discipline call earlier paying off. This zone is pulling to the eastern side of that cliff, which means that call is perfect now. And there's a few teams that you get to those spots, you're committed for a long time. Sheesh, the team up on top, a prize actually going to get an armor swap or a bat off there. So they are also in a great spot. They do need to heal up, but they will have a lot of company here momentarily. I take that back. It is only one member. We were seeing the highlights of another as Sheesh, a prize, has to defend here.
He's got the caustic gas to work with, and we know that he's done a lot of damage recently. Our highlights tell us that at least 2 members are still up, and this is sort of the funny tweet we saw for preparing for ALGS earlier. few people talking about how common Caustic is. This is certainly one way to do it. It seems like these barrels may just buy them enough time to prevent somehow. But now, Nova stops. A lot of damage and there's no way out. Cornered by their own barrels. SMPs are going to be the ones that end up picking up the kills and dropping the dome just to make sure that res comes through nice and safe for them.
Not in time.
That's unlucky.
Well, Noble now is on the prowl. They have made their presence felt with the teams now having to rotate to this side. They are starting to welcome them with open arms and open mags.
Oh.
They're getting shots in. Caustic as well. They're going to pop up, get the pop shot there, finish off that squad. So Noble now starting to heat things up as their shot calling and their IGL decision making is paying off in dividends, down to 9 teams left and in a dominant position.
Really amazing for them, and since they have access to this high ground, they can see the warfare going on in front of them. Domes going off all the way on the west, and Noble ready to push up on this. Haven't managed to find anything just yet outside of that last squad that they cleaned up, but they know that with this dome, they are almost ready to push. Dome goes down, and now there's nothing to stop them. They get a dome of their own. The wingman connects for Flesh. Noble is going to find yet another kill. And are they putting themselves in the position to win this game? I think so, J-House.
I was trying to check the kill feed. I don't know if they got
ridiculous.
credit for that, but this is where the Bloodhound scan comes in. They got identification on how many it was and where they go. So they're playing a little bit more old school, and it's SMP that's now going to go out. And this is teams sandwiching in. Noble moving up slowly but surely on these teams, continuing to play off this, and this scan one more time is starting to generate more opportunities.
So many squads that have fallen to the sort of crossfire that developed just there, and still controlling the high ground, but not controlling this next zone are Noble. They're going to need to make their way in. They don't have Portal, I believe, just yet. They're working off of Impulse's occasional scans. Right below the bridge, not nearly as safe as it is in some other areas. And Noble finds that out very quickly as Impulse needs to ditch top side. They've got Bubble to work with now. A little bit more safety for them, but they're not ready to take another engagement just yet, as there's a lot of long range to contend with right now, and everybody now knows that Noble already cleaned up some kills and are ready to be taken down if somebody can get the angle.
We've got one team left on the other side. I don't know if they have the Valkyrie, but so many teams had to come to this side that everybody got choked off and there was so much damage. And this does tend to pull further up towards that fence line. So the team on the fence does have the positioning. It's teams like Noble, and you can see G7 Dakin, C Davis with Vizay there. They're trying to be the gatekeepers of each other. They're forced to fight each other because they know the team on the other side is more of a threat. So they have to deal with this before they can deal with the bigger name. And this is going to be a crazy inning, down to 4 teams now. Out of bounds, one team died to the zone. Ring took care of another, down to 3 teams.
Ridiculous how many teams we have, or rather how few teams we have for entering this final circle. We already know Buff Pathfinder are waiting up on the high ground. Noble are playing with very little cover that they have. Instead of white shield that they end up taking.
Well, playing off the scans, they're trying to get information. They have a team underneath here of the tunnel. Remember, they are not running a Caustic. Unlike our other teams, they can play around bubbles. The Gibby bubble cancels out the Caustic ult, so if something can happen there. Meanwhile, that is Buff Pathfinder, the team that is on the fence with the positioning.
They're ready to take this as well. We've seen a lot of these zones before in ALGS's past, and now Buff Pathfinder, they're in control of the lobby, a lot like Noble were before. It's up to one of these teams to wrestle it from them, as we haven't lost anyone yet in terms of the full squad. Buff Pathfinder waiting. They got the shield swaps ready, but are not going to be forced to move just yet, as the ring is basically dropping right on top of them, and everybody else is going to have to run past this shield line to make it.
Yeah, you got to imagine that for one of our teams, they want to just play for KP. Placements are great, but they're just going to be playing for KP because they're playing for second place. If Buff Pathfinder plays this correctly, the Gibby ult, I mean, that's going to do next to nothing there. They don't even have to use their bubble, so now they have bubble in their own. Meanwhile, it's going to be Impulse. They see the bubble out, so look for a Gibby ult in response coming out from Buff Pathfinder, but Noble is starting to come around this fence line, maybe too early, and they're going to be able to evade this damage. So a little early on that now opens the door for Noble to take a fight.
Really nicely done from them to bait that out, knowing that they had the space to work with, and now it's not so unquestionable anymore. All of a sudden, Buff Pathfinder are actually in a place where this can be wrestled from them now that somebody else is with them on the high ground. We're going to see the push out from the two-man squad on this low ground. The Valkyrie ult to try and get some space, not going to be joined by their teammate. Instead, just buying time, drawing attention up here, and maybe trying to play the out of bounds. It's a risky move, and one that is tormented by time.
Oh, wow.
But it starts a fight on the other side. Noble eats a lot of damage out of that cost. The bubble is forced out, interestingly enough, to keep them from taking the gas damage. Pulse ends up getting on the other side, popping the battery right now. We're going to see the end of the game coming up on a very, very short.
Well, Noble has forced to retreat and regroup, and they've done that. They got the kill. Quick armor swap is going to allow them to fight with this. Red armor, they're now going to be the aggressor. They're going to pop over. There's knock number one. Noble looking to go back-to-back here. They are in some caustic gas of their own, but it is all going to be the Eva shots, but it is Buff Pathfinder, the team that is with the dominant position, now going to come out as your Game 3 champion.
My lord, that was so ridiculously close, J-Hal. I'm not comfortable at all there. It's just the caustic that is left standing. Malice Mamba clutches that one out to find Buff Pathfinder their first win of the day, and off of that, they can be exceedingly proud of what they just accomplished, because Noble played that really well. We had a lot of crazy stuff going on, but they managed to hold on to it and finally able to find that win.
Make no mistake about it, that was a big win for Buff Pathfinder, but for a team like Noble, they didn't get the back-to-back win, but you know that call early led to a second place finish and plenty of KP to go. A team that you said was going to be one of the front runners today, they are now looking like that after a couple of games in a row of very good performances. So if I'm Noble, yeah, I would like to have that win, but I'm feeling pretty good about that performance overall. And whoever made that call to chill, wait for the zone, read the zone, hang out in the truck, and once that pulled to the right side of that cliff, the east side, they were able to start picking teams off. They had low ground, they had cover, they had scans. I mean, they did what they needed to do. They just came up a little bit short, but a big game for Impulse once again.
Yeah, huge stuff, and we're going to see how that ends up netting them point-wise as we take a short break. And after this third game, after we crest this halfway point, we're going into Game 4, but the stakes are even higher. We'll be right back.
Where was I when I needed it most? When I needed myself? Where was I? Where was I?
The team that is with the dominant position now going to come out as your Game 3 champion.
Welcome back, folks, as we have crossed that halfway point, Shayhow. We have gotten 3 banger games, all with different, very weird endings. I know we've appreciated the shot calling of Noble twice in a row, but I want to know whether that paid off for them.
Yeah, you got to imagine it did, despite a second place finish. I'm curious how much KP that they got. It looks like they only got 6, and it was a monster game from Buff Pathfinder, team that picked up 12 kills. That fence line is devastating. And when you've got so many teams that were playing the other side of that cliff that now have to come over, I mean, you're just picking them off in droves. They got fights, they got KP elsewhere, but they put themselves in a position for a first place finish, and they did so in emphatic fashion.
Huge stuff from them. And hey, it almost gets them into a first place spot. Check out the top 3 now. What a change it is from game 1. Dumpers, Noble, and Buff Pathfinder all within 2 points of each other. This is looking a lot like EMEA in the morning, where there is a very, very heavy competition for a top. But then, as of right now, at the very least, there's a pretty sharp drop-off.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Benchwarmers sitting at 25 points, so easily within striking contention. You know, the bigger part for us that we've seen twice in EMEA and, of course, in NA in week 1, the second half of our 6-game set has provided quite a few fireworks. We almost saw a miracle finish today from Team Clean in the final game, coming up just a few points short. So I think one thing that we've learned is it's kind of hard to count out some of these teams when there's still three to go. We know that's a lot in this type of format. We'll see where we're at after games 4 and game 5, and whether they can spin that kick earlier created such a huge distance between them and second place that they were able to get in despite having a poor game number 6. Can one of our teams create that type of gap today? We'll find out here as we are past that halfway point.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any squad that I am looking to pop off, that I'm expecting to pop off, I think is the better way of phrasing it, it's going to have to be Benchwarmers. As yes, I'm expecting Noble to stay consistent, to continue getting into the second, third places with decent KP, but Benchwarmers are the type of squad that could honestly take almost a third of the lobby with them, and everybody would go, you know what? That's pretty on brand. So yeah. I'm looking out for that kind of game, because a almost 20 kill game plus a win, hey, it would look a lot like Kick this morning, and it would catapult them way into first place.
Yeah, we know it's possible. Buff Pathfinder just did it by getting a lot of KP and that first place finish, and that's a team that we are waiting to pop off. They've been performing well. They just haven't lived up all the way to what we know is their peak. They have not even come close to peaking. We know that it's possible. I think that last zone kind of threw everybody for a loop, thinking thermal, thinking thermal, thinking thermal, even in the zone for quite some time, thinking thermal. And all of a sudden there was a huge shift to it being on that east side there. So all the teams that invested that, I think it really threw everybody off. And so we'll see, you know, if this zone can maybe generate a little bit different success for some of our teams as they rotate in.
Yeah, huge stuff is on the horizon for these guys, as we've gotten 3 exceedingly different zones already, and at this point, we've sort of had a taste of everything. That we may not have gone all the way north into a place like Survey. We've still gotten a lot of teams that very clearly can make these rotations consistent, and some others whose performances are a little bit more determined by where the ring is going. And I'm expecting that as the day sort of moves on, that we get these guys to get even more cemented in their style, because 3 games, while it doesn't seem like a lot, is also enough for everybody to have start getting a read on things like we talked about earlier, who is dropping around them, what their play styles are, and now how to exploit them.
Think about Never Lucky. They went from Frag East over and tried to meet a team in No Name to the east while the zone was pulling left. So they tried to get one of those edge out of zone fights, try and catch somebody off guard. It didn't work for them. They wisely retreated, went back. So we do see teams kind of evolving these strategies along the way. We'll see if there's any more creative starts to the game as it's time for game number 4.
Yep, dropping in right now. We'll get a taste of where that next ring is going to pull us, what this next game is going to look like. As right now, everybody dropping in. Looks beautiful across World's Edge. I do appreciate that they all get their different colors. I'm expecting us to go somewhere towards the north. I'd expect a survey zone that we haven't gotten yet. And there's a possibility, and I'll say it's a small one, that we get something over by Lava City. But hey, as I finish my sentence, it is utterly wrong. We're going Overlook again, and I can't say that I'm disappointed.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to pull all the way there, and we've already seen that getting an early read on the zone could look entirely different. We know that this generally pulls more towards the east, towards No Name, but there could be even out in the open, and a lot of the zones that are kind of around, no, not near epicenter, not normally in Frag East, but we'll see. Time will tell, but it's Dumpers, the team that has done well so far, sitting in first place, but just barely. The team that comes out of Big Mod, normally pretty heavy looted with the guns that are available here.
Yeah, and that is something that I think we can't really underestimate when it comes to the KP that they've been able to pick up. Those extra bullets definitely doing them good, but also it's just sort of a reality that the squads that tend to drop around Lava City, around Big Mod, are also squads that are happy fighting, because it forces you into such an edge play style so much of the time that the very fact that Dumpers are the ones landing here tells us a lot about how they found themselves in first place, and we've seen it with our own two eyes. Kimchi Lee has been popping off in the kill feed. This guy has been a hero, and the rest of the team is definitely stepping up as well. As well, we've had a lot of backup and a lot of really nice knocks for them in the unlikeliest of scenarios. They have been able to play edge, they have been able to play Bloodthirsty. And now they're going to get the chance to do that once again if they can get through Noble, who could stop them on their way up, taking tunnels once again right outside of Geyser.
I would like to point out that the teams that are staying a little bit old school, a little bit more traditional, have actually been performing really well. We kind of wondered, would the new meta be difficult for these teams to play into? And there have been times, but I think to the point that you made earlier, the experienced teams between Benchwarmers, between Noble, the teams are running more of the old school style. It's working really well for them, and they know how to deal with this. They know how to adapt to the situations that are provided to them, and they're using it kind of against other teams. Some of the strengths that come out with those Bloodhound scans, teams aren't used to dealing with right now in the meta as much. It used to be everybody had a scan, everybody had a Bloodhound, and for a short period of time, everybody had a flashbang scan, health stopper, interrupt their seer. Luckily, that's no longer part of things, but it is interesting to see some of these off-meta picks like a Pathfinder in here having some moderate success, and for some people more success.
Yeah, I mean, one team is calling for him to get buffed, and they've already gotten plenty of points under their belt to make a strong argument for it. As we get our first rotation via the jump tower outside of Lava Siphon. It looks like they're going to be going to Grandma's house instead, taking a little bit of a different approach, like with the Valkyrie scans, spotting out that it would not be an uncontested drop. Sheesh is going to instead take hold of what is pretty prime real estate if they can control it well, if they can spread out and find these picks.
That choke has always been a place that a lot of teams like to play in, and they do control a lot. It's hard to push, and you can kind of pick things off, and they found a team on the other end. It's actually Dumpers, the team leaving that choke, getting shot in the bag. They're going to say, hold on a second, maybe we need to use a few more resources to survive.
Dropping the bubble, it should be relatively safe for them right now. Not a whole lot of teams have collapsed into this area just yet, and they are still inside of second circle, but they end up taking suboptimal real estate. It's the first building that they can really get inside over here on Fragment, and we'll even see if they make this. Nice jump, let's go. Scan really, really useful there. Ends up making sure the building is clear, making sure that they can hold this building before they even get the chance to touch it. And now, moving over to a team that is not so lucky. But just as soon as it is MFT pushing in on top of them, still get knocked though. Gas is going. Trying to push up for a few extra kills, does end up getting the knock, but gets knocked himself. It's a trade of 1-4-1. This actually might be a little bit more dangerous for SMT than they had anticipated. Going through the gas once again. Valkyrie is right on the edge, docks the area. Pull this one off, but
I thought that they saw them before because they had went right to the left, but tried to get that battery off behind their teammate. Did not work for them. So
no.
Down and out is our first team. Never Lucky, the team that held Diner in the game where they did really well a couple of games ago. Trying to get an eye here. But now it seems more teams are housing here in Frag East, understanding the value of this position.
Yeah, and I think that for very good reason. I mean, when we saw the map initially, it called Overlook because it's pulling pretty far into the east, but in reality, a lot of the second circle still does encompass Fragment, and a lot of these guys are kind of taking the noble gambit here and saying, well, although the initial pull was pretty far east, it's still very likely, because there's a lot of real estate in Fragment, that it actually ends up pulling to a place that's a little closer to home, and these guys making that choice are going to see whether it pays off or whether it turns into yet another funnel for a lot of teams, much like we saw the previous zone that also included guys that are in a bit of tunnel.
Playing more to the north side, teams do like to hold that top part, the cliff, if you will, the little overlook. Teams do like to vie for that position with so much still available. You do have to fight in a lot here. But I think a lot of teams do like that position. They're actively trying to poke and see if they can push off of some type of crack. You don't necessarily have to take it. They have plenty of time, but make no mistake about it, they would love to move forward here if the opportunity presents itself.
They got a lot of G7 ammo to work with as well. The Origins, though, seem a little bit unorthodox. A really big crack comes through and actually finds Flesh. And this is where I'm a little surprised that SXG aren't actually pushing this.
They're flanking. They're flanking on the right, yeah.
They've expended a lot of resources to make this work, and with a defensive bombardment coming down, this should be the perfect pincer on top of this team up here. Looks like it's Benchwarmers, though, and I wouldn't mess with Benchwarmers, so we're going to see how this one ends up working out.
But it's a great read by Benchwarmers. Instead of moving toward the west, they're trying to run a portal out, and that's actually kind of isolated them. And so they read that well. They understood that the team was trying to flank them. So instead of portaling into the flank, into potential danger, they've now managed to regroup. And I would argue they actually have pretty decent position. You have to have your Gibby move forward. So Benchwarmers playing this well. See if they can survive this push. That's going to be already knock number one. Rambo beaming with 1 health. You can see just how razor thin this fight is, as the health bar is extremely low on the side of Benchwarmers.
No matter how low they get, one does not simply peak Rambo, and never has that been more apparent than now. Now it is Benchwarmers who are flanking you. They get those last couple finishes, and they're just trying to pick apart the remaining members. Gibraltar, the biggest threat so far. Big with the G7 Scout, but the fact that they've got so much to work with, they've finally been come up on from behind. They got to finish this kill, but a lot of damage comes through onto Knock. They've already lost Madness. Rambo is still on single.
Wow.
Huge shot actually might have turned this for SXG.
Yeah, Madness ended up getting cracked and got pushed there. They knew the team was split, so good comms from the other side. Now SXG has the 2v1. Rambo, the only one to survive, and it looks like he's going to dip out, and they have an easy res opportunity now.
Wow, what a play there, as it looked really doomed for a while, getting cornered, getting hammed in by these teams, but somehow Benchwarmers end up going out early, and that's going to cost them big, as we talked about how they need to have a pop-off game. Now they need to have at least 2 if they want to dream of being able to take these.
You know, we had eyes earlier that could still be Sheesh up there controlling that. Normally a team that holds the choke stays on that choke until the absolute last minute. They eliminate all threats from behind them while looking for opportunities in front of them. We'll be able to check on that later, but you can see the effect that has. That's actually going to force one of our teams to move west and take a longer rotation.
As they do that, there's a chance that they encounter a little bit more resistance hanging out around Harvester, and it's an unlikely rotation, but one they've got to respect either way. There's a lot of open ground up here, and hey, as we talked about how unlikely it was, still that respect ends up paying off. There is another team that is likewise taking a little bit longer to make their way in towards the next ring. Still going to be relatively safe, but definitely a bit of a risky fight right now, as it seems like Sign Us Please are the ones that are holding this choke. And now you're stuck kind of between a rock and a hard place. If on one side is Sign Us Please and on the other side is Sheesh, I don't know which I'm picking.
This one's a little harder to hold for Sign Us Please. You don't have the same type of cover, that area up at the top right on the other one. Much better to defend, so it looks like their solution is to push forward. And they're hitting right now. Wingman shots actually doing a lot of damage right now, but that's going to be the death of one. They're trying to climb up, and it looks like they're being punished for going up.
A alive for right now, but having lost one member, they're gonna have to take the reset, pop the Phoenix kit, and still a lot of damage actually ending up coming down from Sinus Please, dissuaded by instead a push from an entirely different squad. Frozen is swooping in here, trying to find a few picks of their own. Have in fact cleared out the area and are pushing the remainder of what might be Sinus Please. Instead, catch them on the retreat, not knowing I think that there's a squad behind them as well. They didn't end up being sandwiched in here, but they might take out Sinus Please before that ever happens. They don't quite get the knock. CLX are on the chase, and they got the Bloodhound to secure it.
Yeah, when you get those cracks, you don't have to worry about the team at your back. When you are running down the team in front of you, you're going to be met with a charge rifle for resistance that actually cracks 2 people. So CLX pumping the brakes real quick. Now with the zone closing in, will turn around and turn their focus back towards the zone. They feel that they're safe. They'll have at least ears out from the Bloodhound. They do have a scan available. Yeah, there it is, detecting no hostiles. So I think they feel safe. Sinus Please actually ended up losing 2 members, so it's only Synced that managed to survive.
I gotta wonder as well, on the other side of this, what happened to Moners? Because they're caught inside of the ring now, and this ring doesn't play games. They're still going to have to choose which angle they're going to push, and very likely could be bleeding out right now. We'll have to see, keep our eyes on the kill feed if they end up showing up in there. Is taking a look right back over at Fragment East. We see that a lot of this real estate honestly hasn't been improved upon. There's not a whole lot of teams stacking on top of each other still. We've got a lot of open area as the game has gone on. Looking in at CC, not particularly happy right now. End up giving up a little bit of that high ground. They still haven't gotten over into a safer area. And oh, they're paying.
Yeah, Sheesh, the team that is still up there, and now they're the ones that are punishing. However, they had some shots actually from the south. I think those are the ones that actually got the knocks. I'm not sure if any of that KP will be going over to Sheesh, but they have held their ground, and they have held that position since the beginning. But as we can see with the next zone, they will have to make their way down the hill and up towards Frag.
That's going to be a long road, as there is a little bit of cover with the rocks here, but there are a lot of teams waiting for you. The fortunate thing for them is that, as we talked about, not a whole lot of that real estate has been stolen away just yet. We got some nice loot for them before they start their journey down. Dome is available to make this a little bit safer. Instead, not going to use it and just straight up loot in the open. Not going to be punished for it for right now. All right, sheesh. And nice wing.
Especially when you're a controller player, you're definitely not moving.
I know. I'm actually kind of surprised that they didn't get lasered right there. I was like, surely the dome is going to have to be used to make this happen, and nope, they're fine.
CLX into Frag East. You can see this is pulling more towards that cliff, that hillside that we were looking at earlier. It's the reason why that real estate is so valuable out in the open. It's impossible for more than 1 to 2 teams to hold that. Lonely Fans in the bottom of Train Station, they're getting some action, but the teams on the hill, there's enough space on the west side of it, and then there's a poke on the right side, and there might be, depending on how tight that zone is, potential for another 3rd team there. They kind of all coexist there, but 2 teams can exist, and those are the teams that will control a lot of the rotations for the teams coming up. It's not quite yet in round 3, but as round 4 and round 5 comes in, that's going to be the biggest spot for teams. It still could pull further south down on the open area, but you got to imagine the teams up high feeling real good right now.
I got to point out in the meantime, at the same time, that Sing, the last member of Sinus Please, did end up getting a kill during that time. So still continuing on the Sinus Please name in a bloodthirsty way. My curiosity lies right now with who's being rewarded for more northerly positioning, because we saw some fighting around Epicenter, and if you held on to that, now your stocks are the ones that are looking really nice. As Buff Pathfinder, they got themselves a truck pretty early on, but unfortunately that particular positioning has not been rewarded.
Yeah, they see Team Sheesh over in the other truck. So we got to imagine they Valk ulted over. We're able to take that spot. But as we can see, this with that pulling north, I mean, Dia, we have 12 teams in 1 minute. There's no building to go to. There is only terrain that you can get on top of. There's some icicles over where we see that team landing. There's a couple of head peaks, and that is it. The bridge at the back is still in, the truck on the northeastern side, but make no mistake about it, this does tend to pull more towards the center of that zone on the southern side of that lava break. There's potential for it to end over by the truck on the right side, but look at the amount of teams on the southern side, on the outside looking in. That will be catastrophic for the majority of our team.
It's going to be a bloodbath down there, and over here, Noble are just going to be chilling. I asked about the stocks, and I feel vindicated to see that Noble have made it. There are a lot of Valkyrie squads that are trying to make their way in, though, and that could be dangerous for not just Noble, the other squads that have occupied this side as well. I know we got a chance to see that SXG were also occupying around here. After they wiped Benchwarmers, ended up hanging around Epicenter, got that KP, and held on. And now, the siege could be from a lot of different angles. Noble have the best spot if it pulls to them, but still a risky one if it starts to pull away. So right now, they're being focused down from multiple angles. Remember, we saw that earlier from the south, and now a little bit of damage from that eastern end is going to be huge. Arcstar spells the end of G7 Dank's squad. Unfortunately, that's going to be the end of Otama.
If you're a fan of kill feeds, get ready to take a look. All the Valkyrie teams managed to find some type of positioning. Meanwhile, SMP popping off with the scout. So with the amount of cover in Epicenter, this does pull enough to where you can look around, but oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, it is lighting up right now as Sheesh is finding some kills. We got Noble getting up in there. Lion has ended up falling, and now it just gets worse and worse as even these individual icicles around Epicenter are starting to be prized territory. How far we have fallen from buildings being the standard to now all of a sudden glaciers that couldn't quite find it in them to go away.
Well, it's surprising how much cover this particular zone is here, but we are instantly down to 7 teams. 18 members left, so a couple of non-full squads. Meanwhile, SMP, they're playing a bit of the low ground. You can see how many death boxes. That's the teams that were rotating up from frag, and this is just how lethal it can be to get stuck on the outside looking in on a zone like this. Meanwhile, Mercy only looking for an armor swap. I'll say trying to find one. They clearly found a broken one in there. Meanwhile, Noble was in the kill feed moments ago. They've repositioned. They're now playing up on the bridge area. So for them, they're still surviving. One of our top performing teams are doing well. They're finding themselves now here in the top 6.
They got to get the heck out, though, as Ring's not pulling towards them. 30 seconds still left, and they don't have that Valkyrie for the quick reposition. They got to use the Wraith as smart as they can and identify the spots that they're going to need to move to. This is a chance they can still run it at this point, and they got plenty of ammo, especially with the Wingman, to fend off any unwise peekers, as we see one of them punished right there. They're both thinking about dropping down, but going to hold on to this bridge for now to try and pick off the KP, as they know that a lot of teams are going to have to funnel through them. This is risky positioning. This is an investment, and we'll see if Noble have the raw mechanics to pull this off.
Take a look at this, though. It's Sheesh here on the hill. They managed to fight their way all the way up. They're going to get an angle, get a crack, but they have impeccable positioning right now. That one rock that's right beside them, that is their one protect, but all the angles, all the sight lines are in their favor to capitalize on the teams moving in. With only 5 total teams left, though, there's going to be slim pickings in terms of the amount of teams to kill, but that also means they could open up and be more aggressive. Look at this play from Timmy, jumping down. He says, to heck with it. I am Valkyrie. If things go bad, I fly right back up, and he did just that.
Yeah, the cracks are perfect, the knocks are better, and now Presley is trying to be a safe space for his teammate to crawl to. You can see Dank, though, who could just peek this right now. Definitely the confidence that comes with being a member of Sheesh has definitely paid off, and it looks like it has not paid off for Noble. Golden actually finishes them off, knocking them out in 6th place is huge if they can, but Noble Lucas still down on the low ground here. Carries on the name, gonna be spotted though very shortly, I can only imagine, by a member of Sheesh. They don't have the scan to make this work, but surely they noticed something.
Sheesh is popping off right now, and Timmy is making plays on this Valkyrie, getting in places nobody else can go. They have 1 member left. They're going to send it down to 4 teams, and just like that, Sheesh has put themselves in the discussion for one of our teams now. Haven't had the best day, but this is a fantastic game for them. Not only that, but they have the best position to close this out deal.
Yeah, I mean, we compared them and Benchwarmers earlier, and again earlier we said that Benchwarmers could easily put up a high kill game. Same thing, of course, is going to go for these guys who have performed miraculously so far. They're not even fighting against 4 full squads. They got 2 broken ones in the meantime, and it's really just Golden that they need to deal with. As
3 squads.
Get yet another knock.
How many people?
It is not enough, people. Never enough for Sheesh, as this is going to be basically pure KP for them right now. Dropping down with the Eva, and once again, Timmy gets to safety with that Valkyrie, holding on to the best spot. They clean up everywhere, and I've never seen a game look so easy.
Think about the timeline that they had. They held the dominant choke. When things didn't work, they repositioned. They fought their way in. They were on the eastern side of the zone, meaning all those teams coming from Frag East, they didn't have to contest, but they picked up KP while moving up. Nobody gate kept anybody from that hill, and if they did, there was a price to pay. They went up there, and Timmy, my goodness, sometimes, you know, Timmy goes for the highlight plays, and he looks pretty darn good, like 99.9% of the time. And this is one of those times where he looked phenomenal, making use of that Valkyrie, knowing his positioning, knowing all the terrain that he could move upon, knowing the timing that he had to go down, get a couple of shots, use that to come back up. Everything that he did there is what you dream of doing as a player in Apex Legends. What Timmy just did, that was a team effort. Don't get me wrong, a phenomenal team performance. But there at the end, he was farming kids.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you touched on a little bit like the idea of the team effort. You know that part of that has to come with trust in your team as well to hold down the fort while you were gone. And I don't think there was any question in his mind that his team could back him up, find the rest of the kills while he was off hunting them down, and really looking good for Sheesh. I want to see if that gets them in contention for a top spot, because there is a very big chance that now they are in the top 3 as well. To do that math, we're gonna take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Pulling more towards that cliff, that hillside that we were looking at.
All right, welcome back, folks. We are rushing into a game right now. These players, they gotta get home, they gotta eat. So, Jay-Hal, let's take a look at the points before we get any further.
Yeah, obviously a big game from Sheesh, and how big it is.
Sheesh.
Monster size, 14 kills, 26 points. So a team that didn't have a great start to the day probably has now found themselves at least in the top 10, maybe even the top 5, and maybe even closer with that big of a game.
Yeah,
Woo!
no, there it is. Are you going to say it? Are you going to say it now, Jay-Hal? Yes, thank you so much. Oh my god, my day is made. And honestly, probably so is theirs, but they still got the chances to take somebody else's away. Noble topping the leaderboard still by 3 points alone. They've still got the best shot at turning this into the win that was just barely taken away from them last week, and they will be foaming at the mouths if it gets taken away from them this week as well. So I want to see some big games coming up from them in this 5th one.
Yeah, it's going to be a close race to the end unless something drastic happens. So I'm excited to see as we are already ready to go. 2 games left, only a few points separate our 1st and 2nd place teams, but there are many, many teams still within striking distance. See if they can close the gap here, because it's time to go.
Oh yeah, they are chomping at the bit behind them to actually steal this one away. Is now dropping onto World's Edge once more. We're going to get to see what kind of shuffle we get this time. And interestingly enough, we're getting Harvester as our zone pull. I really, really like this, as Harvester is another really interesting POI where there are a lot of places to hold out. It's very central, which is going to enable a bunch of different play styles. But most importantly, it is entirely different from anything we've gotten before.
This is one where it is very, very delicate. Now, I've seen in the past where a team like Benchwarmers will try and control that choke just south of that tunnel that plays just north of the hill there, right in the middle, in case it pulls there. That's something they've been known to do, but maybe they feel that this zone is pulling closer to Harvester or potentially south of Harvester near those train tracks. So keeping an eye on that will be paramount to how this game will play out on the positioning of those teams. But Harvester, the majority of the teams will be making their way in there, Dia, and that's when things get real interesting. It does slow down a lot, but it makes for some very difficult shot calling and some very cool moments.
Certainly does. And Sheesh right now moving their way in. Well, on the other side of this, we got a fight to the death going on over at Trials. This could get dicey very quickly, as there's a lot of bloodthirst in the air, but fortunately, clearing the Trials. We're going to have everything squared away and everybody booted up nicely. Same thing going to go for Noble here, who interestingly enough have one of the shortest rotations to the ring that they could possibly get, given that it's not pulling towards guys.
Noble, I mean, I've been very impressed. I know they're a team that we know is going to be good and a team that's done really well. But given the circumstances of game number 1, they had a really long rotation into a very difficult area. But since then, they've rebounded. They've played their side of the map very well. Now, it's with that central location, I think this does favor more, I don't want to say comfort, but definitely an easier route, as you said. So will be fun to see.
Over here in Harvester, these are some of the teams that will have the most fun playing, and I'm sure will give us a whole lot of content to work with, as they're the ones that have the best shot at being able to play their own style. They're right in the middle of everything. There are going to be, we talked about this morning, a lot of rotations through that area, through Harvester, through Lava Siphon, and right now it's already paying off. As Benchwarmers, they came here to farm these kills, and it's exactly what they're doing from the top. Rainbow picks up yet another kill.
Yeah, they chose not to take that one. Instead, they will be playing the Harvester side. They caught a team trying to hold the choke. Now, they have to decide, is the real estate better, which most people would say it is, or do they hold this choke? And I think that getting into Harvester is a much better long-term play. Benchwarmers needs a high-place finish. Of course, they need KP. We know they can get that, but they haven't had one of those top finishes since game number 1. I think this is time for them to play more of the zone. And they were reading the zone really well in the last game. They just weren't able to hold it. Things are a little bit different here when you're surrounded by so many teams. You don't have those isolated fights, and you're more apt to play slower and more opportunistic.
Yeah, holding this area though, the snake right now can be pretty difficult, and it doesn't result in a whole lot of KP. It tends to be a lot like this epicenter center. And so instead, they're going to go up into the middle of Harvester, try and get themselves easy access to Death's Door. As, ooh lord, that charge rifle with the 3x, it is not a meme for no reason, my friend.
We know Rambo loves the charge rifle, does really well with it, but can also excel in any environment. Picked up that purple mag for his Prowler, so we'll be prepared to get some poke in or to get some close range in case some teams try to push. This spot that they're in, they can coexist with the team below, but as you can see, it gives them sight lines towards the south. He is aiming everybody, but you have all the different angles that you can shoot from there without the threat of other teams. So I think that Benchwarmers have actually taken a very dominant spot in Harvester.
I want to see if they can make that work out for them, as it does require a continual pushing of the envelope, that they constantly find fights, thrive in them, and are able to reset. Harvester is one of those places that can devolve into chaos very, very quickly. And interestingly enough, we always got to talk about this with Harvester zones. We got to look at who is going to control the high ground at the end of the day, because any of the high ground right outside of Harvester comes at a massive, massive premium.
Rambo is farming damage right now. Man is steady on the hand.
I really want to see him with a gold Prowler as well. That just seems like a heck of a lot of fun.
He got that knock.
Casually finds 72 damage and the knock. What is this game?
I want to see if somebody else can help with that thirst. So watch the kill feed, and that could be some more KP that they are in desperate need of. But he's beaming. He is feeling it this game. They will have to deal with the pressure that comes into teams that will be coming into Harvester. But right now, I think they can sit comfortably for a few more rounds and continue to play this style. So far, we haven't seen the thirst on that. We do see a Jibby bubble down below, so the res probably comes off. So you're not getting the KP, but you are eating up some of those resources.
Finally getting a taste of his own medicine, though, as the Rolders giving him a love tap back. The 2x4 on the charge rifle instead. Much lower in the shield amount though, so not nearly as close to farming it all up still. CPR certified are going to be the biggest threat, I would say, to Benchwarmers up there, as we got a little bit of a clip of something really exciting happening. There it is, Dumpers. They're the ones getting collapsed on right now. They lose 2, and that's likely going to be the end of them. We'll see if the Rat will survive with 3 strong around them. It is unlikely.
Oh, it's only 1v1.
But holy moly, somehow Tony with the Eva. This is going to be enough. And lordy. Dumpers end up going out. CCE, they're the ones that prevail.
I mean, Dumpers is within striking range of the first place finish. With an early out here, that might not be available to them. They're going to have to hope for some other things to go their way, but that is a major loss for one of our top teams.
Yeah, penultimate game of the day, and going out like that before we even hit top 15, before placement points start to become a thing, is extremely difficult to deal with and recuperate from, as they have very little time to do so. A team that definitely wants to keep that momentum going, though, and has sort of the opposite problem here, is Sheesh, who obviously we all saw had a frag out game last time, but are playing this one a little bit slower. I think mostly because the zone initially drew very close to where they like to drop.
Yeah, they've housed up here. Those shots weren't very far from them, so I don't know if they just weren't in position at the time or whether they are playing a little slower, maybe dialing it back on the early aggression. We saw how well it played for them to have more control last game with a 27-point game, I believe. So for them, I think they're more on the patient side. They do have a long rotation in. You can play the train tracks, the carts there, to at least work your way towards Harvester. You got to imagine there's a team there already, but there are opportunities for them to get in. We'll see as we get more views on some of the other teams.
Yeah, there was, speaking of, a team out there in the sort of eastern edge. I wonder if that's still Noble, because we saw Noble hanging out around there earlier, right off to the east of Harvester in the little S choke, and that is a very in the sort of eastern edge. I wonder if that's still Noble, because we saw Noble hanging out around there earlier, right off to the east of Harvester in the little S choke, and that is a very strange place to hold, but it's one that Noble might be looking for an angle on, in much the same way that they like to hold Tunnel to try and gatekeep and then have the Liberty to collapse back in. It might be the very same move the other way around. Bad Boys just ADSing right, just straight up holding right click and see if they can get the shot. Doesn't end up finding anything. It'll be a continual trade of bullets this way.
I think that there's a strategy going on up top, if I'm not mistaken. They're trying to wingman shoot the door open, and if that doesn't work, they're using the Valkyrie to kind of play bait to see if that door will open so they can peg one of those shots. So a little cheeky play up the ramp there. You got to give them credit for the creativity.
Finally, a sniper scope on this charge rifle might end up with a little bit more damage as well. Take a look down all the way in the south over here. It's SMP who are making their way through tree. They find a little bit of resistance that seems to be lagging behind. It's Sheesh instead that finally made their own rotation over, playing the edge. Please, speaking of playing edge, have found themselves a couple of kills right now, and holding the door is going to be enough for them at the moment. It might be up against bench performance here in this little snake. The Prowler we talked about earlier really comes to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you could foresee it, and when it's Rambo with a Prowler and that purple mag on that, he just popped off. They did have to get a res there. It looks like they'll be able to get the armor swaps. Noble down one member, so they'll play the lower bowl here at Harvester to try and just kind of, I don't want to say rat their way. You can always poke your head up out of the hole to steal some of this KP. It's not a terrible spot to be, but Benchwarmers has recovered. They came down off their high spot. When teams fight in these chokes, the teams that are on those high grounds where you see a team like Benchwarmers, that's why it's so hard to fight in Harvester, because if one team fights, another team can come in. If they read the kill feed well, they know who's knocked, they know what they're walking into, they got the cleanup and they got the KP and the loot to go with it.
Yeah, this sort of necessitates a kind of clean play style, if you will, and I mean clean to throw back to EMEA games earlier today, where up here on the high ground we see a little bit more just unbridled aggression.
They went right back. Nobody took that spot
from them. I know it's kind of wild actually, but like, who's going to take who is going to see Benchwarmers leave and go, that's mine now?
I mean, normally you see enough teams there, but maybe there's enough damage done where they're just like, you know what, like, there's nobody in the middle area, and the teams that are playing low, I'm actually surprised that there's not more activity here, but those two teams on the northwest Snake side of Harvester were kind of the other two teams that kind of could see things, but they kind of opened things up for Benchwarmers, and the fact that they were able to take that back for free, that is a huge boost to their success.
And normally we see that be a lot more difficult, but instead, they're the ones that completely own this high ground. I'm surprised, interestingly enough, that they aren't one of the teams holding inside of the center. It is a little higher risk, but definitely high reward as well. For right now, having unbridled access to it, definitely still a boon for them. But Benchwarmers did find a lot of damage, haven't found a lot of the actual KP for that to turn into yet, and that's still something we're waiting for, is check out this ring, Jay-How. You know what this might mean?
Could be Hillside. It is a little further south than I would imagine for that to be. Meanwhile, looking at the mini-map, Sheesh flew over. They're now at the train station stop on the left. CLX, the team, holding the high ground. So for them, they might have to fight that. It's all about the team on the south. Do they go to the west side or do they go to the east side to make their way north? And that's the bigger threat to Sheesh if they decide to fight CLX up on that hill.
Sheesh's decision-making gonna have to be clutch this game as well, as they haven't gotten the ball rolling just yet. If they want to take first place, if they want to qual for Pro League, it's gonna be a big game for them. Benchwarmers on the receiving end of some poke get that door griefed, and it's gonna start taxing their mental a little bit to keep their eyes on every possible angle. As now, you gotta be aware you can still be shot from all the way on the other side. The team that has been bothering you the entire time here. Pretty casually, though, holding up. Benchwarmers don't have too much to do just yet. They got about a minute.
I saw the portal on the mini map, but nobody had turned around and seen it, so I wasn't sure. And then I looked. They clearly went for a kidnap. It did not work. But I was looking for it. I was like, where is that portal? Is it outside? And then he looks up, and I'm like, oh, they went for a kidnap.
Yeah. I like it too because they like opened the door, got the jump off of the open door, and then closed it so that like you can actually do it. And it's a very creative way to try and go for that play. Sad that it didn't work, of course, but there's always the chance that we get something like that happening later. Did you catch that Octane Bangalore Bloodhound squad, by the way?
It's unique. It's unique. We saw something similar earlier. I'm not normally a big fan of it, but the repositioning of bench warmers, if it does pull towards that hill, that northwest snake, you had mentioned it earlier in the day, but we'll talk about it again now. It's the easiest way to climb up the north side of that hill and kind of have that surprise attack. There's cover there, so if it does pull towards them, they have a really good position to go up there to not just get KP, but also get a really dominant position. And it looks like they're actually going to go ahead and rotate up towards that hill to try and hold that. It's late enough in the game to where it's a little safer to do. Everybody played more towards Harvester, so that choke in the north part, nobody's holding that. So they don't really have those teams at the north staging side or in that choke area to shoot them. It's actually very good play for them to read that.
Yeah, really impressed by the fact that they end up pulling the trigger now as well, because it speaks of the confidence that they've got to hold that through all the teams that are going to be wanting to come from Harvester as well. With the jump pad going down over here, it looks like TSS might be looking to cause some chaos. They've already got Bangalore all up with the inherent sort of lack of visibility that Bangalore can give them. They take this opportunity to get real close range. We'll see if it ends up working out for them. The leg goes down before he can fire a shot. Try and punch this out. Rolla Theory is on their last legs here, and they just gotta find the miracle shotgun.
Oh, he had to reload!
They end up going 1-for-1 at the end there, and they get third-partied entirely. Both teams lose out.
Yeah, that was an aggressive push. They were looking to play off the smoke and scans, but they were met with the Jibby ult, which means they had to accelerate things as they reassessed and checked. Meanwhile, Sheesh also dealt with some losses, and it looks like they did get the banners. This is going to be a bold res. They are directly below Moners, the team that just came up for the third party, so they could get back into this. I mean, it's not going to be really great, those boxes this late into the zone. I'm not sure if they'll have a way to get those. But now we have a look. The hill is the place where this will be ending.
And that speaks volumes for the team up here. We talked about it earlier. This is the preemptive move that if they manage to win this game, we'll look back on and go, this is what did it for Benchwarmers, because this gives them a commanding spot in the lobby. They've got very few teams that actually have the ability to take it from them. They got to watch their backs here to see if some of them end up coming from theirs. Right now, a lot of Gibraltar ults are being expended just to keep them at bay, and it looks kind of Fiesta-y, but it's buying some other teams the ability to get up here and actually get a foothold in the contestation.
Benchwarmers has to be careful. I was going to say, they're more worried about the third party. They might need to completely retreat or regroup and jump down into the ravine. That's exactly what they're doing. And this is the smart call. They will have to fend off teams coming from Harvester. This isn't a bad position. And it looks like the company is actually coming from above, not even from there. So they're going to rotate over. Prowler comes out. Bullets come out. Gibby goes down. There's going to be one knock. They've repositioned very well. They just have to worry about the team coming from Harvester, but the team coming from Harvester also is going to be in at just the nose. So right now it's free reign for Benchwarmers.
Yeah, I mean, the best part of this move is that really nobody from the high ground can contest you, because to push you right now would be suicide. Everything from the other high ground is going to be looking at them, and right now they've just got to ward off this one squad. Bubble is going to expire early. Dark Star's coming out right now. This very well may be the winning move. They find a huge crack right now for 91 flesh damage, but are going to get greedy and instead continue to watch their backs.
Great spot here. Benchwarmers playing the ravine. This is a dominant spot, but they do have to still deal with the team on the bottom. One team that survives here normally has a high success rate to get top 3 because it can't be pushed. And right now, they're top 9 with some work still to be done. This could very well pull over on the east side, or excuse me, on the south side of this bridge, on the right side of where we're looking at, which means that the team on the hill in the building might actually have the better positioning. So for these teams, coming up from the bottom going north, a lot easier. Coming up from the bottom going south, a lot more difficult.
And we got to keep in mind as well that, in a way, Benchwarmers can't afford to play this too patiently, mainly because they don't have a source of verticality right now. We saw it cost them game 1, throwing your mind all the way back to when Joy Boys stole that first one away. Now it's something they have to be keenly aware of as the zone continues to close. Thank God they're inside the next one, but they always have to find a way to get up before the zone closes them out.
Well, they're 89% on the Valkyrie ult. Yeah, they have 89%. They could play underneath there, but they also have an ult opportunity that should be available to them soon. Is it going to be soon enough? CPR certified, the other team that's on the bottom, that will barely be in the zone with this position.
I'm actually really surprised. We got a blink of this. See that Sheesh have made it back.
Well, they just got knocked.
Ah, well, never mind. That was unfortunate. It was short-lived.
Right on cue, buddy.
Yeah, that was. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to draw the attention to the lobby, but that was in poor taste by my part. Benchwarmers, in the meantime, draw our focus back to them, as I'm sure they can take it. They've come under some fire from the high ground right now, but nobody's going to be contesting this end. As we've actually found a really nice way for two teams to coexist inside of this ravine, weirdly enough.
Yeah, on the eastern side, there's a little bit of a curve, and that's allowed them to do it with this zone. If it was further to the north or west, it'd be a different story. Meanwhile, Rambo and team, they actually took down a member. I believe they took out one member of Sheesh. So with Madness down there trying to get the res, they get the res, but they are under assault. Benchwarmers have had a really good game so far. They're going to go ahead and make sure and get that thirst. They've got an armor swap off, 7 teams left. They still need more points, but they have a game right now in their hands that they might be able to do even further damage and close the gap to contest going into our final game.
How are they alive? It was the best single push they could have gotten, and yet they didn't withstand that.
What?
A kidnap comes in, and Madness goes down, but it's traded 1-1, and now coming through the portal, Benchwarmers are going to make the cleanup happen. Finally pop that bubble one more time and likely get the res up here. We'll see if Rambo can keep any team to follow them up at bay. He gets these shields as well, and all the way back, Madness goes to try and heal up. He's in a really risky spot right now. Please come back. Holy
He doesn't have long. The zone is moving in. They have to move through that ravine and north or climb that wall. Either way, it's going to be rough. Down to 5 teams. Final zone closing in. It's our team here on the north side that will have the shots on the other, but they have to make their way across. They have a jump pad, one of the rare Octanes that's going to be here. They'll be able to make their way in soon. Meanwhile, a prize is actually finally down there as they continue to rain down shots with the scout.
Looks like for right now, Benchwarmers are thinking about climbing this northern side. They get the scan down, but SXG is ready for them. They've got immense control at the moment. 4 squads still up. A part on the other side of this gets heavily chunked out. SXG in complete control right now. Aren't letting anything be set up, and likely are going to go off and finish that one off. CPR certify the other team on the low ground. They've got that Valkyrie reel, but no good way to use it right now. Still under a lot of fire from Benchwarmers right now. Seems to be instead focusing their attention on taking them out. CPR certified are going to lose 1. They're going to lose a second, but they do trade back onto Nox. Now from above, in comes SXG, and it was clean. It was inevitable. SXG, they find the win in our 5th game.
What a call, though, by Benchwarmers. They knew that there was going to be no way up. There was only one way through. They got the KP, and they got it there at the end. SXG did manage to go down and clean that up. So a big win for them. A big game, though, for Benchwarmers in the KP department. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually are the points leaders after that game. And with Sheesh struggling in their rotation, not necessarily getting the success from before, we could be looking at a very tight race going into game number 6.
We likely are, and a lot of this as well is going to sort of hinge on how Noble ended up doing at the same time, because they're the ones that are going to get to extend their lead with any of the points that they got, because of the fact that we did get Sheesh falling early. Benchwarmers can sort of mirror them, and I want to see, after we come back from this, after we get into our 6th game, how we are in the points. As you say, it's going to be very close. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with Game 6. Welcome back, folks, as we are getting into, Jayhal, the last game of the day, the very last chance that you've got to clinch that top spot to move for yourself into the ALGS Pro Leagues today. Everybody else, they go home with points, and that's all well and good, but only one gets to win.
Yeah, despite the points that you're going to be accumulating, I feel like second place is like, it feels real good because you got a lot of points, but at the same time, you know, you were so close to qualifying to not have to get there. And Benchwarmers had a big game. SXG actually had a bigger game. That first place finish in 12 kills gave them 24 points, but Benchwarmers made up a lot of distance there. They needed a big game. They got it, and they got 20 points this game.
Huge. Really, really good stuff. But hey, SXG actually, they kind of come out of nowhere with that and end up swooping away the top spot, leaving Noble and Benchwarmers tied for second, with Sheesh bringing up third, although, of course, on your display, it's going to say fourth.
I mean, there is no mistaking that all of these teams could win, but SXG now has that target on their back. Closing that gap is nowhere near impossible. So there's 3 teams, all that could be there. There's an outside shot just below that. Otama would need a pretty big game and a lot of bad things to happen to the teams above them. But make no mistake about it, SXG looking to secure their spot in this final game, but it won't be easy. As we've seen, there have been no easy games here in North America. We saw kind of the easiest game from Sheesh there for a bit, but they had to work to get it. They played really well, but everything else, these teams are fighting tooth and nail. So I expect a pretty amazing finish here, and I'm excited for it.
Oh yeah, we are going to get going in a really, really big way, because remember, of course, that SXG, they've sort of just shown up this week in a way that I don't think that going into today we had any right to expect, or anyone had any real right to expect. I mean, you know the names, you know, especially Golden. I've seen him a lot, and you know that he's a very talented player, and everybody else on the team very clearly backing that up with some talent of their own. But Benchwarmers and Noble, they were here last week as well, and they're chomping at the bit to take that away from you. Only 10 points are the gap between SXG and that next spot, and that's not very much when we're talking about teams that are willing to do anything to take it from you.
I want to say huge shout outs to Sheesh, who are in position to potentially secure their spot. They had some unfortunate circumstances in week 1. People weren't exactly sure how they would do in this scenario. I think everybody knows the potential of this team. They have the potential to be the best team at any given moment, but putting the pieces together. They admitted, when I'm watching their stream and you listen to their comms, they said, it's good we're getting the mistakes out of the way this weekend so that we can be better on Monday. They are for sure better in a tougher environment, and they are within distance of securing their spot in their first week, but they will have 3 to 4 other teams that will be trying to vie for that same spot against them. Let's go. It's the final game.
And oh lordy, is it going to be a bloody one, because look at this, we are getting yet another central pull, including Harvester, but drawing us into Lava Siphon. And I talked about this earlier, NA teams love playing Lava Siphon. There is so much real estate here to hold. There is so much open ground to be punished as well. And these zones can very, very quickly turn into bloodbaths, as a lot of teams will have an easy rotation in. So too, we are looking for those teams that land a little bit further away, like Golden's up in Climatizer, SXG, to clean up on their way in to take this as their game.
We saw some activity last time. They said, hey, you know what? Let's go out and see what's going on. If the charge rifle hits a little harder, maybe they can do something with it, but farming up some damage, getting those shields up. A lot of teams will be making their way to Lava Siphon once they get that scan, or even when they start to read that. Lava Siphon has potential to have a lot of teams there, and there's zones that do pull towards that eastern side. This could be over towards the Dorito. We don't know yet, but make no mistake about it, teams will be moving into those small buildings, the trucks, anywhere they can get in. But Lava Siphon is about to be real busy, and I think very fast, because it is more of a central zone. You'll see them play on both sides of the bridge much quicker than you would see in other POIs.
Absolutely. So Sheesh right now have pretty good access to Lava Siphon as well. They can start moving their own way in. We'll see where the beacons ended up landing as well, as it seems like there's at least one for them. They will know that that second zone is extremely close and be able to play with that information in mind. But the thing about Lava Siphon zones as well is that there aren't a whole lot of ways to get reads on the very next zone afterwards. Central Lava Siphon is pretty darn easy to control for just one or two teams, and if they're the only ones that even have access to being able to scan out the ring, it's going to be a lot of last-minute adaptations, and I mean really last-minute from teams third ring and beyond. For right now, Noble setting themselves up for success. They're decently looted, but it's all about claiming a spot that they can hold down for the long run. Right now, they don't have a caustic, and so it's going to take a lot more effort than usual, but they're making the proactive moves to make it happen.
Yeah, you bring up the best point. They don't have the caustic, therefore the building that they're in now is actually very pushable by team. So if they want to make their way in towards the big building, I think that's going to be safer because your enemy is your ally in those situations. You rarely push each other, but it does help you keep from other teams entering. So they will have a difficult time down the road. That building that they're in right now is harder to push because coming up that hill, you'll have more teams with sight lines that do filter into Lava Siphon. See how that plays out in the long run. But Noble putting themselves in position, though, in the center to maybe get some of that KP from those teams rotating in that you said might be a little bit late. Even though it might not feel late, it might be late when you consider just how many teams will be there.
Looks like we got Moaners over here dropping down to get themselves a little bit of a gold item. They got the amped walls as well, and this might be one of the times that we see them show up. We've seen them in tight situations before, but Moaners has yet to pop off. Even though they're the only squad today running the Rampart, they have yet to make it. Well, that is why.
I love it. I mean, it's so silly, but I love it.
The energy of that is chaos energy. that is just purely a hey, look at me sort of move. I like that they did it. It's fun. We'll see if it ends up with that energy paying off later, as maybe they can pick up a little bit more excitement. Already ult being used for Rampart to try and find some kills. Not going to find any knocks just yet, as everybody's pretty aware of the damage that can do at this level. It does end up forcing a dome. With Lava Siphon still the place that a lot of teams are filing into. Nobody's taken that truck yet. Maybe that's where this is headed.
The
I am
Valkyrie,
shocked.
CC took a lot of damage going up. And I mean, wherever they land, it has to be away from people. They cannot land anywhere near anybody. And I think they are trying to make a safe landing, but they need to heal up and fast.
Yeah, Prophet barely manages to get inside. The Rampart ultimate almost actually taking them down, as Valkyrie definitely puts you at a lot of risk, and Rampart can shoot a lot of bullets in that time, but we haven't seen the likes of SXG, Noble, or Benchwarmers show up in either the kill feed or on the map just yet. Really just Noble pushing in right now, as it seems like we're getting our first little action, and it's Sheesh, who, remember, are not very far behind.
Yeah, I think that they actually ended up getting one member knocked, but it seems that they were able to recover. We kind of broke away there at the last moment. So Sheesh needs the KP. If they are going to get a first place finish today, they will need a decent amount of KP to go along with it. You can't always bank on your enemies not getting KP and that placement point, so you have to find ways to close it, and that's a good start for them. Meanwhile, we're getting a look at Rampart, and a place where Rampart probably excels. It was a cool visual. I'm not gonna lie, that actually was pretty fun.
Yeah, I don't know how well it's going to pay off for them, but hey, you can grief a few doors while you're there. Maybe get a knock if people are disrespecting you, as right now I believe respect is going to be the name of the game. A lot of teams are going to live or die by how much they estimate that you can do to them. And right now, Sheesh, they're the ones playing with the very least respect right now. They end up finding themselves in a 2-squad versus 1-squad situation, still do the damage on the way out. And that sort of confident play is the thing that very well could get them some kills. Right now, they're looking at the house that Noble is in as their next place to stay.
Under the bridge and under here used to be a cool place when it was Sorting Factory. Rip those days. So now they need to work their way a little bit harder to get in. The fence line is okay. It's not the worst spot. You know, there was a moment, I don't know if anybody made it in there, but Lucas was trying to hold one building as the lone mobility player. We'll see if that was held there. Meanwhile, Dumpers, the team, getting the kill here underneath. See if they follow up.
Dumpers currently in 6th right now, would need a 20+ point game to take this one. It would be wild, but what they can shoot for definitely is those points that carry over as they get later in. As holy moly, a lot of damage comes back onto Kimchi. Does end up finding a knock though with the help of his friends, and as the fight ends up going on, we'll see who ends up prevailing. It looks like Sheesh are doing pretty well for themselves right now. Not quite finding that knock, though, as Fearless ends up living up to his name. It's a 1v2, and Timmy needs to pull this out right now on the Valkyrie. It's actually a 3v2 entirely, and holy moly, Sheesh meet their untimely end in 4th place. Goes nowhere today.
Yeah, they are out of contention. Yeah, Wig actually, they traded in the beginning, but the push onto a prize ended up getting lost in the mix there, leaving only Timmy. He wasn't able to create an angle to help down Fearless, but because of the trade and the positioning, we saw them able to get the res off, and that is Sheesh downed and out. So only a handful of teams remain that can win this game now.
Nuggy Butt having fallen to TSS. Yeah, I know. I can't. I can't.
One
do it
time
any
is
other
enough.
way.
One time is enough.
Will Noble continue to hold their own building right here, taking away TSS's chances of winning or whittling away at them little by little, as losing the member definitely going to be tough for them. Up here at Grandma's house is a pretty decent place to hold, though, especially since we don't have that much information on where we're going next. We're waiting on that next ring pull to be announced, as I'm sure everyone is. It's going to determine whether we end up going a little bit more to the north, and maybe this becomes more of a game for Grandma than anything else.
Benchwarmers is the 2nd place team, or tied for 2nd with Noble. Looks like they've got a fight on their hands. You know, this lower ground has actually been quite active. Still 16 teams remain, but the majority of those deaths seem to be on this lower side, down and out of sight from Lava Siphon. Playing around this Bloodhound ult is where they are going to try and make their case, but now maybe forced to retreat. The Bloodhound ult, 6 seconds left. Down to 3 now.
Now under fire from 2 squads as well makes this exceedingly risky. Rambo, I'm not sure what the plan was there, but ends up taking a lot of damage. Now forced to take a reset inside the dome as they get pushed. This is an impossible situation, and it's getting more impossible by the second as they lose a member. Rambo jumps towards the guys in an attempt to survive, and Madness cues out the other direction to try to do the exact same thing. Gonna be taken down in the crossfire, though, as TSS claim another life, or rather dropped claim another life. TSS now pushing in on them to try and get their own cheeky little KP going.
That's 2 of our top 4 teams that are now out, and that leaves Noble and SXG as your front runners, with SXG with the big lead. TSS now, they, with their backs against the wall, Kimchi Lee and team come in and clean house.
20+ kill game, maybe. They've already cleaned up several squads. This is looking pretty good for the Dumpers, as
they needed
6+ kills. This is actually, this could move them to the top place. They still got to contend with Noble and SXG, who are still very, very much in this game. SXG has been quiet as a mouse this entire time.
Dumpers came in with 35 points, 21 points behind first place. So they would need some help. But it is, as we saw earlier today, nothing is off the table for potential comebacks. Nothing.
That's something that will... Oh, there we go. We'll have to tell those stories as they start showing themselves. Dumpers, we talked about a little bit, definitely the comeback that we would dream of. We also mentioned that things could pull a little bit north, and all of a sudden, Noble's positioning gets pretty well rewarded, as does the team over at Grandma's. Rule of Theory, though, not nearly so happy about where this ring is pulling them, have to go through the majority of Lava Siphon, have to walk all the way through the team with Sheila as well as Moners to set themselves up in the central building, and they should see this coming.
Trying to get the angles. Shot's not going to connect there. But every time you shoot, you do kind of expose yourself that opening. One of the teams not running a Valkyrie. They do have a jump pad to close the gap. You can always go through the tunnel. I don't know if that's going to be a play. It looks like they're looking to move up towards the command center building, maybe underneath. So they can always jump pad up to the top. One of the rare teams, of course, running the Octane. So if they can assess the situation, they have a Bloodhound as well. So they can read that better than other teams. So they might actually be able to reposition pretty well here.
DZ desperately needing to reposition themselves, has already been, scanned at the same time. This should be difficult to escape as Charged Rifle makes it nigh on impossible. Getting the shield swap onto a white shield is going to feel hecka bad, but the fact that he's not getting pushed lets him take a little bit more time to make this happen. We'll see if they can survive for long enough to start getting a few more placement points, but right now that's all that you're looking for at this point is Flux. Basically not looking for this week, looking to make the return next week and rack up as many points as possible because, of course, first team of each day going to qualify, but at the end of all of this, 16 teams as well who have the most points will make their way in. SXG wanting to be one of those teams that qualify on the day, finally show their faces up here by the Snake, up here by Harvester, playing the edge of zone. No KP yet, but that can change on a dime.
They are playing the edge hard here. So they'll get this position. It's likely to pull over towards the eastern side of things, so they only have one team to contend with. I mean, you're going to be isolated, but the teams that are in the building to the east of them could see enough action to be persuaded to come over here in third party if the fight breaks out. So SXG still playing the zone. They also do not have a Valkyrie. They have different tools to get in with an Octane and a Wraith. They could even look for a kidnap here if they want to try and get aggressive to isolate somebody. Low risk fight, but we turn our attention back towards Lava Siphon.
Yeah, back to the higher risk plays as more and more squads are forced together. It looks like we're going to get yet another squad wipe, though, and it's in the favor of Dumpers again. They pull this one out. They're getting the full reset inside of Lava Siphon, although Kimchi Lee comes under some fire. Looks like this is going to be safe for them, or at least relatively, and they get to continue on, looking for even more kills to add on to the ones they already have. 6 at the very least for them is massive.
Yeah, I mean, normally you get a lot of your KP towards the end of the game. We saw very similar rotations earlier, but they're picking up a lot early. There are a lot of teams and a lot of KP still available to them, and they are just aggression to try and get in there.
Lost James Fearless half his health bar, but oh lordy, that thermite. It is the
they got
end
that one.
of you. That's the end of CCE. Remember we talked about Flux trying to survive earlier. Well, that tree ends now, but it looks like so might Dumpers as they end up losing Kimchi Lee, and now pushing in. It's going to be nearly impossible to survive that. They've still got 2 other members trying to make this work for them. Dumpers end up finding a knock right back. Can they actually clutch this situation out of nowhere?
They have a Caustic, or excuse me, they don't have a Caustic. Caustics are in the area. It's completely possible the res is there. I want to bring to note, there was a knock with a Kraber on Noble. I didn't get to see the full kill feed on how that followed. We now see Kupski taking down Impulse. Those are big, and if you're Dumpers and you've got this much KP already, very big statement. Noble down 1 member now, will have 2. And we look at the KP at least on 1 member, no assists, no kills. So purely on placement so far, but they're just outside of reach. Only 10 teams left. They have a lot of work to do to try and advance this cushion because Dumpers still there.
It looks like they're going to end up getting the res right now. I'm not sure how long they'll be able to hold on to that, as every team in the area will be looking down on this low ground trying to pick that up and thirst it. If they do manage to get this third member back, though, it could be the key that they need, as catching up to SXG right now is the name of the game, and with less than 10 points, it just is not going to happen. They need a way to make these go in their favor, and for that, they need every hand on deck.
You know, we have not seen much in the kill feed for SXG, but placements enough can do that for them. We're already down to 7 teams. Meanwhile, Dumpers still wrecking people in the kill feed. They are running through people right now, as we are already down to 6 teams left, and this zone is wide out in the open. SXG playing purely on placements, but Dumpers, we now see, are going to be down and potentially out.
No, the hero story, it must go on. They're still alive for now, but there he is. James Fearless ends up going down, and the tale of Dumper's redemption ends here. Now it's all about the fight between Noble and SXG. The CPR certified, they are the ones that hold the high ground. They are looking down on Noble, or rather can from this angle, but haven't had to so far. It looks like once again, though, Noble gets knocked by another Kraber shot, and I don't know if they'll be able to survive this.
No, it's the time is counting down. They would need every ounce of KP available. They would need SXG to go out instantly. Kind of hard to keep track of everything that's going on, but SXG could be there. Noble did get the res off. Buff Pathfinder, a team that was in contention earlier, now playing for points. They have a Kraber in hand. They're making some action happen.
They're the ones that have been harassing Noble down on the low ground. It only gets harder and harder as the missiles start to rain in as well. Noble is continually getting hammed down, but Buff Pathfinder now needs help in their main building. Where they were holding down before, the defensive bombardment is forced out because it's SXG right on top of them. Never did I think that Noble and SXG would be this close, fighting with the exact same squad, and both desperately needing to come out on top.
It's SXG's game to lose. I mean, right now, with every team that goes out, this just means that they are 1 point closer automatically. They would love to continue to play. I don't even know the math needed for Noble, but it would have to be a Herculean effort. SXG, though, poking around here, trying to get some KP before this goes in. They're going to lose 1 member. Has some work to do. 1v1 here. The Caustic, it could be the Ring actually is going to do the damage. The Ring does the damage. SXG out. I don't know. Noble still needs KP. That is the only way. A first place finish is not enough. They need to clean house, I think, to even have a chance.
They need to kill everyone. Every single member of this lobby has to die to Noble. That must be the only way. 12 points from first is big, but I don't know if it is enough, and I don't know if they have the tools to do this. They have been cowering inside all of this time, and do not want to face up against this again. We've seen Lucas tweeting about this earlier, but the qualifiers have not been a journey that they have relished, and right now they're facing down the barrel of maybe having to do all of that again. Pathfinder wanting to clean up a kill right now. They didn't go out, and they can still put the hurt down. Noble still in the ravine as well. Fire keeps raining down, and there is no way out from this.
Yeah, I mean, they're shooting toenails off, but you shoot a toe long enough, apparently that's going to get a knock.
Yeah.
We're 8 seconds away. Noble, I mean, they're in top 4, but with no KP, I don't know if they can do it. We'll find out if they even get first, and we'll do the math after that. But right now, it looks like SXG might be clutching on to what seems like a lot of hope to secure their spot here in ALGS.
Buff Pathfinder as well, very, very close to finding their second win of the day. An impressive feat in the preseason qualifiers, to be certain. Noble get that scan. They gotta go aggressive sometime. Finally, they end up pulling the triggers. The Bloodhound ult gets popped to bring them up to the high ground. Can Noble finally put themselves in a position to run this lobby? Only time will tell, as they still are forced to cower behind this rocket. The sniper shots raining down in front of them. The Gibraltar ult will do good, though, as it's going to force a reposition, and in goes G7 Dank looking for an angle on top of Noble now, exposing their backs left, above Pathfinder right next to them. Only these 3 squads remain, and it is a battle of terrain, a battle of movements.
We need a first-person view right now to see the angles they're taking. Noble's going to hop up over the head peak. Armor's going to get cracked, so this is their game to hop up and over. Battery comes in. Will it be enough? Noble about to crest this. They need to hit their shots. They need to take care of the teams that are directly in front of them that might be keeping them from their destiny to get in on today. Noble peeking up, moves over. Bubble comes out, goes forward. Eva shots come out. They do have to push into a Caustic. They need to get rid of these. And here they go. Last team. And that's it. This is their chance. Noble down 1 member. They're moving forward, trying to get first place. There's going to be another knock. But it is Otama actually is the champion, keeping Noble out. I don't know if Noble had enough KP to go with it. So SXG will be your ALGS qualifier here in week number 2.
It would take a miracle. It would take so much hidden KP, and honestly, I've got to agree with you. Like, I'm trying to I'm very bad at math, and so it's very difficult to call on the fly, but I gotta trust you, because the thing is that I didn't see that KP fly, and I saw them taking pot shots at the end, and they may have picked up 1, they may have picked up 2, but going out in, what is it, 2nd place only gives you 9 points, and on top of that, you get maybe to 10. SXG definitely had a little bit more to keep that distance safe going into just off placement points alone. They got some KP as well, and man, oh man, is that a deserved victory? I want to see how the points ended up actually laying out, though, because we had a lot of teams clamoring for that top spot, and a lot of people that will be happy to continue on with their points on the weeks to come.
I mean, big shout out to Dumpers. They had to push the pace. They had to get it. They came up a little bit short, but they put on one heck of a performance as they were necessary to run through people, and they were running through people there for a short period of time. So they picked up a lot of points, but going out early kind of killed their chances. Sheesh, I'm sure we'll see them in the following weeks. We still got to tally all of this, but some really competitive games today. I think we've seen parity of 2 team races, 1 team getting really far ahead or some big comebacks. But today, when we do get these tallied here in just a moment, you're going to see a really close, I think, top 6, 7, potentially 8 teams putting up a lot of good performances today.
And it speaks to that parity that we were talking about when we started the day off. I feel like there's no better example. The fact that we have so many teams that could have won at the very last second. And I'm just going to double check this right now. Only 2 of them were even returning teams at all. Just the 2 that ended up placing in the top 5, but everybody else who had their highlight moments still ended up looking really good. I mean, you look at a team like Buff Pathfinder, and I got to be impressed by the performance that they put on today. So many teams can compete with even Benchwarmers, even Noble, even Sheesh, that it isn't really looking like a 1-2 or even 3-horse race.
Yeah, you know, Benchwarmers, I think, went out in some very unique moments. They lost some pretty even 3v3 fights. I think that's not typical of what we're used to seeing from Benchwarmers. So some circumstances are outside of your favor, but losing a couple of those fights, you got to imagine they'll go back to the drawing board, see how to approach those, whether it's comms, whether it's positioning, and you got to imagine they'll rebound stronger, but came up, I think, short in a couple of fights that were 3v3, and we'd love to see them do more. We still expect them to get into ALGS. It's just a matter of how.
Absolutely. So let's take a look, Jay Howe, at who did get into ALGS, because only 1 team made it today. And okay, I got really caught off guard there. This is our 1 game kill points. Dumpers 22 points, actually almost made it in.
Wait a minute. So they were 21 points behind. SXG went out what position?
SXG went out in 6th.
Oh, they had 19 kills. 19.